Hello, everyone. I'm a few moments late, but I'm here. I am so excited to be talking to you about X-Men 97, Season 1. I still haven't done my full review, which will also still be happening. But before we do that, let's go through all the episodes and just recap everything and just talk about everything because it was a lot and I'm still thinking about it. I have an amazing guest with me here today. I have my good friend from Casually Comics. Sasha is here with me. So hello, Sasha. How you doing?
Good. I'm excited to post-mortem X-Men 97 season 1.
Yes, it's I mean, I went back and watched some of it and I was like, man, this is like already such an experience and it just happened. And I feel like I'm going back and we were kind of talking about this before the stream. I was saying it's weird. It feels like nostalgic, but I'm like, how can it be nostalgic? It was
But
like
it
2
just
weeks
happened.
ago. It just happened. Yeah.
It's interesting because I found it a lot denser upon like going through it a second time. I was like, this feels a lot denser than the first without that gap. So there
Yeah.
definitely is a big difference in like going through it in a chunk versus the week by week. I also had my daughter with me for some of it. And so
Mm.
that was always good to have the intended audience's reaction because it always helps temper my more adult reaction when I see like what's landing or what's not landing. But I guess I wanted to ask you overall, from what you've rewatched and everything, like has much of your opinions changed? Did you feel really different about anything? Notice anything? Or was it pretty much the same vibe as the first time?
I mean, I think it was kind of like what you were saying in terms of it definitely feels more dense going
Hmm.
back. But I think it's just because now there's things I'm picking. Like, it's the seeds that were planted that I
Hmm.
kind of just either there's stuff that I glazed over or I was like, what does it mean? But then everyone was like, we have no idea. There's literally nothing that we know. Like, I think it's in episode 1 when we get the
Hmm.
sand version of Cable.
Yes, and also you
Mm-hmm.
get to see all of those kind of flash forwards, and I'm like, "Oh, this whole vision hits very different now."
Yeah, I'm like, uh-oh, this is all coming to you. And when I first watched it, I was just kind of like, but what does that mean? And what does this mean? And everyone was like, you're, I think, over analyzing it right now. But now that I'm watching it back, I'm like, no, I
It
wasn't,
meant
because this
something.
is all real. Yeah, this is all very important. So I'm definitely noticing that. I think, like I said, it's weird. It's like I want to say the lines with the characters. Like I'm already ready to pretend that it's been 10 years and I'm revisiting the show or something. So that's been kind of weird, but kind of cool. And I think I'm also having a new appreciation for just a lot of the voice acting work
Yeah,
that went on.
definitely. I'm experiencing that too. Like some of the stuff that I felt was rough upon like multiple watches. I'm like, you know what? I actually don't like some of it I like more, some of it I like less. So it's just, but on the whole, I found my opinions have stayed relatively the same. Like some of the stuff I noticed the first time I purposely was going through and I was like, do I still like this as much or do I still find this awkward? Like for example, in episode 1 with when Roberto at the end and he gives her the card and he's all like, maybe I'll even let you fly my jet. I'm like, this still feels like he's leaving. This still 100% feels like he
Yeah,
left.
and then he's just like never leaves the X Mansion. That part it's so weird. That part okay. The other thing is when Roberto said that, I was just like that's never gonna happen. Like we don't still don't get, I'm still waiting for that. I don't know if you at the end of the season. So when the Blackbird was like gone, I was
Yes.
just like, oh, is this where like Roberto's jet will finally come in?
You thought it was Chekhov's jet? You were just
Yeah.
waiting for it.
I was like, where's the smoking gun that's Roberto's jet? Never came back. So I'm hoping we get that in season 2 because I feel like that's a cliffhanger that I just need. I don't know why, but I'm really desperate to see Roberto's
You'll
jet.
be there like they seeded it all the way back in season 1. This is the
Yeah.
deep lore Roberto's jet.
Yeah, I'll be doing a whole just a video on Roberto's jet. I'll be like, remember in episode 1 of season 1, this little bit? Let's expand on it. Let me tell you about all the times when I thought we were going to see Roberto's jet and we didn't.
A whole video essay.
Yeah, a whole video essay, just Roberto's chat. Also, hello to everyone in chat. Hello, Critter Nation. Hello, Lanique. Hello, Vaz. Hello, everyone that is in here. Chemdog, you've been waiting since the before times. I did a thing at the beginning where I always forget that on StreamYard I have to set up the live stream for YouTube at the same time that I set up the StreamYard thing. And so I set up one on YouTube before, and then everyone was waiting in that one, and I was like, oh, now I need to copy and paste this and then delete this because this is nothing. So thank you to everyone that also was patiently waiting over there and then came over here. I appreciate you all. Hello, DiCarlo. Hello, everyone. Hello, Spear Closet. So many awesome people in chat. Thanks for being here. Thanks for waiting. Yeah, so I think for the most part, though, the things that I'm noticing are just, I'm just noticing details a lot more. I'm just noticing details. Is there anything that you feel like you liked the first watch and that this watch you're like, oh, I don't like this? Or like vice versa? Anything that you like, we're like, oh, I don't like it, and now it's growing on you?
There's just some things that I found that episode 3 didn't feel as rushed to me. For sure. This time round, like this is like the 4th time now, I think, and I'm like, you know what, watching it in like a chunk like that, just going, yeah, it didn't feel that way anymore. And I'm like, I don't know if that's because I've seen it so many times that I'm used to it at this point, or if it genuinely just fits differently when you're in the entirety of it. One thing, I wrote it down. I don't know if I still have my note, because even though I got a notebook, I'm still putting notes in my phone, which is super inefficient. But
also, Skulldoodle is asking on Twitch, is Casually on Twitch? No, you're not on Twitch, right?
I am not currently on Twitch.
Not yet. Maybe one day.
Yes,
we could guest star and play games. I really want Sasha to get on Twitch at some point. I was saying we should play Marvel Rivals when it comes out. We should play games. We really should. We could. We both like games.
We do. I have the gaming channel that I need to get back to.
Oh, could we play Gotham Knights together? Is that the thing?
I would play that. I would.
I haven't played it yet. I heard it was terrible, but then I heard they updated it, and then everyone's like, actually, it's pretty good now. And I was like, oh, okay, sick. I'm like, perfect time to jump in once they fixed everything. Like that.
I found the note. I figured out what was bothering me about the bestie line from Jubilee.
Oh, I have some other things to add to that, actually, but go ahead.
It's that afterwards she said, because they have different takes. And to me, I'm like, these things together is what's making it feel modern. I've heard, because there was a huge argument about whether Bestie was utilized as much as BFF or not, at least on my channel when we talked about it. Some people felt it was more modern, some people didn't. But I'm like, for me, I finally figured it out. I'm like, it's because she says ex-Bestie who had different takes. And I feel like take is very much
who had different takes.
And so I feel like saying like it's a good take, a bad take feels a lot more like of current era to me personally. Yeah. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with this. I'm like, for me, it just feels, I'm searching, I'm casting around for reasons.
Yeah, I feel like something that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to fix my eyeline, but I think my eyeline was better where it was. So this is classic Amanda, just OCD, trying to fix.
Are you trying like which screen everything's on? And
I wanted it to feel like I was looking at you, which I'd have to look like kind of over here, I think, like because you're on this side. But then I was like, no, because if I put you over here, my camera's over here, so that doesn't make any sense.
So then you're constantly,
yeah. But the one thing that I noticed is going back, because I remembered that you were like, I'm not sure about this slang. It just feels weirdly modern. She talks about Abscissa being like a hot topic like girl or something, and I was like,
yes, I remember that line.
Was Hot Topic around in the 90s? I gotta know now. I'm gonna look it up right now. I just noticed it and I was like, oh, now this is bothering me. But maybe it was around in the 90s. Hot Topic first founded. Let's find out. Oh, 1989. Never mind. That is fine. That's allowed. I wasn't shopping at Hot Topic yet. Well, actually, I guess I was shopping at Hot Topic pretty close to that, though. Wouldn't have been the 90s, but it would have been the early millennium. So, yeah, that tracks. That tracks. All right. Yeah, Hot Topic was around the 90s. All right.
Speaking about that, how did you feel about episode 4? So overall, I kind
of like it more.
Really? I like it less.
Okay. Well, why is that?
I just feel in the overall scheme of everything, to
Mhm.
me, it feels like the weakest one. And I don't mean that as in it's bad. I think it's a fun episode and there are lots
Right.
of things to enjoy in it. But it just for me feels the weakest of the bunch. And I feel like I wouldn't feel that way if it was a longer, less tight season, and then it would just feel
Mm,
more like a filler episode. But
right.
because that's there and just how I feel personally about the crunch of life death, I'm
Mm,
kind of like, I kind of wish that maybe we had. I
more
get
time.
why that episode is there, but at the same time, I feel like all the stuff it did could be accomplished as little side bits other places personally.
Yeah, I personally just think that for me, I think why I liked it better is just because so it's like Inferno into that. Inferno's kind of heavy. That
Yeah.
episode's like starts off kind of being a little bit lighter, which I
Yes, for
liked.
sure.
And I just think in the context, like it's kind of like our breath also before episode 5. It's
Yes.
kind of like our and then we jump into episode 5 and then we're all like a mess, you know? So I think in terms of the pacing for me, a lot of the pacing issues that I had overall with like individual episodes were
Mhm.
fixed when I was watching it all as like
As a
one,
chunk.
yeah, one long chunk. But I do still think, for me, I think I like the Mojo story. I just think that should have been just one entire episode. I think they should have put more in and then expanded on it. And then we could have also had some more Roberto moments,
Mhm.
which I think could have been good because I know, and I saw some people in chat were talking about this, about the idea that Roberto kind of felt like he was like an add-on into, like
Well,
this show.
it did feel like he never fully got his full moment. Even when you got to see his powers at the end, they looked great. But they
Yeah.
have this moment in the last episode where they're fighting, and it's after Rogue has her awesome scene where she comes in and is like, she punches Bastion in the face, and she's like, his name was Gambit, remember it. But then Roberto kind of comes up and he has his own, like, the name is, and for a second, I swear they were about to say the same thing. And I was just like, it just felt so repetitive to me. And I was like, no, this isn't hitting the same. Roberto needs his own separate thing
Needs a
going on.
thing. Yeah, I feel like there just wasn't enough in terms of the build, but I did like what they were trying to do. Like I
Yeah, I
liked the
appreciate that.
attempt.
I
Yeah.
appreciated Roberto as the new Jubilee. So
I also liked the whole thing with, I mean, now we're getting into some later episode stuff,
mhm.
but I really liked the confrontation with Roberto's mom, which,
Mhm.
what is that? Is that episode 6? Episode 7?
Because he lets her know and then they're all carried off. So I think we're in that time frame. Because six no, it's not six because six was Life Death Part 2, and then
Right.
also the Xavier in space.
Yeah.
So
Xavier in space. Also, Angela's, thank you for the hydrate and the posture check. And Lanique, congrats on the 20 stream streak. And thank you to Ixmasad.
have
Eek?
you streamed
Smsad.
20 days in a row?
Oh no, I haven't streamed.
Okay.
So on Twitch, what happens is if they watch 20 streams in a
Oh,
row, you
gotcha.
get a streak. So it's like the more streams that you watch without missing a stream that I've done. So that means Lanique has watched 20 streams in a row
I
and
was
has
gonna
not
say you're
missed
a
one.
beast. Like, oh my
Oh
goodness.
my gosh, no. No, Lanique is a beast. I have not done that. Maybe one day. I do want to do a streamathon maybe next month. And if I do a streamathon, that'll probably be at minimum of 12 hours. And then if you sub more, I'll stream until I lose my mind, maybe, depending on you, the viewer. So I do want to do that, but no, that's nuts. Lanique says, can't wait to hear all your X-Men theories and opinions. So I think we're going to save theories. I had an idea of saving theories for Sasha's channel, and then we'll talk about where we think we're going next with season 2.
I also, though, got really distracted by thinking we should do the X-Men issues where Magneto punishes them for turning him into a baby, even though they didn't turn him into a baby. But
That's true. So maybe maybe we'll talk a little bit about some theories then here. I have a few. But let's not we'll save that for near the end if we get into that.
so I guess a question I wanted to ask you about
Mhm.
this season overall is like, what was your favorite part? Like now that it's Now that it's all
Now that
settled.
it's done.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. What was my favorite part? I mean, I've been saying, I think it's really hard. I don't know. There's like my favorite like moment or like my favorite episode.
Well,
Like
let's start with
what
favorite
kind of part?
episode. What's your favorite episode?
It's hard because I do really love episode 5. I think episode 5 for most people is the winner. But
Mm-hmm.
I do really love episode 3. But you know,
Ah.
having gone back and rewatched it,
Mm-hmm.
it might be episode 1, which feels weird to say. But just the way episode 1 lays everything out. I had a new appreciation for it, especially when you
Mm-hmm.
go back and you watch it and you see kind of all the little things that it's setting up, like
Yes.
these things that some stuff we all picked up on and then some stuff is just
Mm-hmm.
went right over our heads, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, oh man, if I can pick one episode, I mean, yeah, I think maybe episode 1 actually might be my new favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I like episode, like initially when we watched episode 1 and 2 together, I was like, oh, episode 2 is amazing. Like episode 2 is just fantastic. And I actually
Mm-hmm.
think I like episode 1 more than episode 2. And it might be my favorite just because it is the beginning, it sets everything up. And from that point, we kind of get to see the evolution of these characters, but it's also kind of setting up like what the evolution will be. Like, kind of like, this is this person's thing. We're going to talk about that in the season.
I appreciate 1 because of how much it is an ode to the older series. It does a lot of the things that they start to phase out, especially post 5, where it's doing like the classic X wipes and the hard cuts and just playing with a lot of those things. Because some of the moments and editing in this series were just direct homages. Like I feel like that was what was going on with episode 4 with that little tiny life death chunk at the end, which was very
Yeah.
much paralleling season 2 of the 92 series where they would do the Savage Land.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I think it's also interesting because it's like you really get to see the evolution of the show through
mhm.
episode 1. It's like, I don't know. I think it just sums up season 1 of the show for
Mhm.
me. Episode 1, season 1. But yeah, I don't know. What about you? What's your favorite episode?
Favorite episode? It's gonna be a toss up between 7 and 10. So
Mm,
it's gotta
7
be
is
like
really good.
like it's difficult for me to decide, but I've really also enjoyed the finale too. So
The
there was just a
finale
lot
is very cathartic, I feel like.
there were lots of like some of it, it's one of those things where I feel like the finale has some of my favorite moments, and those are
Mhm.
coming together to make me really enjoy the episode. And I'm not sure if I were to then pull back and be like, but as an entire episode, would it then be 7? You know?
Right.
So I'm kind of stuck in between those. But I really like Bright Eyes for the way that it really starts setting up that harder tone leading into Tolerance's extinction, which almost feels like it could be a whole chunk on its own. But I'm like, well, they broke it up, so I too shall break it up into parts.
Well, I feel like while episode 1 I think might be my new favorite episode overall, I
Hmm.
will say I think Bright Eyes has like my favorite moment. I think it's a toss up. There's a few moments that I really love. It's hard to pick like
Hmm.
one, but the moment when Rogue is like mourning the loss of Gambit and she's just
Hmm.
like in wherever they are, New Mexico, wherever they are. They're like it's like day of the dead or whatever that festival is happening and they're just like walking around and it's like really tragic and then Kurt is there and he's like she's like mourning like she's not just mourning like one man, she's mourning two men. I was
Hmm.
like this is killing me. Obviously Kurt I think has the best moments in the entire show in my opinion. But that moment, I just come back to that all the time and
Hmm.
I just think about it constantly. There's so many Rogue moments that I think about. Like,
Oh, it's a very
man.
strong series for Rogue. Like it's a
Hmm.
great showcase for Rogue on many, many fronts. Like, even just in the animation of some of her fight moves and stuff, people I saw, like, really appreciating those. Like, it's a good time to be well, I mean, it's a good time to appreciate Rogue. And I was about to say to be Rogue, and I'm like, it is not a good time to be Rogue.
It's not a good time to be Rogue, but I mean, it's a good time. I mean, it's a good time to cosplay as Rogue. It's a good time. Rogue's having a moment, and I'm so happy. And I also think the parallels of getting to see Rogue in this way in the show, and then also we're going to be seeing her like lead an X-Men team in the comics. I'm like, this is a good Rogue moment. Hopefully she won't be in any comas. That's my hope for Rogue in the comics anyways. She did have to at least get one coma in the show.
But it was quick.
It was a brief coma, which I appreciate, Well,
you have to have all the things. I mean, Jean also fainted. Would it have been an X-Men series if she didn't?
Yeah. No, Jean did also faint. You gotta have these moments are iconic for a reason. What do you think? Is there a character like obviously Rogue gets a great showcase. I feel like Gambit gets a really good showcase here. Kurt to an extent, but like, are there characters that you feel like did not get a good showcase?
Oh, who didn't get to shine as much?
Or like just someone that maybe you wanted to see more of that we didn't see more of. There are a lot of people for me. I have like a list.
I feel like they could have done more with Morph, for sure. I feel like there could have been a bit more Morph. I feel like like
early season we got some pretty good Morph stuff, and it almost felt like they gave us things that they were like, maybe we're gonna build a lot more with Morph, and then they were just like, nope, that's all you get.
Well, it's because I got an interesting critique on my critique, which I considered, because I do always consider when people have constructive criticism, which was they felt that it was an unfair criticism to say that Morph's payoff in the finale storyline didn't hit as hard because it was so tied to having intrinsic knowledge of the original series. And they stated that because this is a continuation, that's not a fair criticism. So I pondered it. And then but the conclusion I came to was no, because even though it is a continuation, there should still be enough seeds in this independently for you to get that oomph. And
I agree with you.
It might not be as much oomph, obviously, as if you have the full backstory of everything that happened there. But I just didn't feel that they hit enough. It's like, yeah, we had those things in the intro. We had that brief mention in Inferno. It was kind of there. But for me, that payoff just relied too much on...
Well, I mean, I didn't even realize what was happening when we got that moment. Like, I wasn't until later when people were talking about it on the internet and that was all confirmed that I was even like... Oh, that's what that, because I was like, oh, it could be that, but I don't think it's that, because that hasn't been built. And then they were like, no, that's the thing. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I could see it. Like, there are seeds for it. So, like, not to completely write it off, but I was also just like, oh, I feel like they should have built that a bit more, because, it didn't really, like, hit me emotionally. And I would have liked something like that to be like, oh, no,
Yeah, and I felt the same with...
and because I love unrequited love. It's like one of my favorite things.
It's your tragic trope of choice.
It is. I love it. I just feel like, I think it speaks a lot to my own experiences in romance. Like, I very much, especially when I was younger, like, was very much an unrequited person, and like loved a lot of people that just were like, you're a great friend. And I was like, great. So I think that's the thing that I feel like I would have really connected with from Morph, and yet it kind of missed me. So that's kind of a bummer, I think. Kind of a missed opportunity, because also I just think Morph is so cool, and we did some cool stuff with Morph, but it was never really fully realized, is what I would say.
I got deep into the weeds of whether that's how the powers work or not, and then I backed out because I'm like, I'm not qualified for this discussion, so I am going.
But I mean, that was a whole... I even went into that in one of my reviews, because I was like, this is a question a lot of people have been asking, so I'm just going to answer it. And then when I answered it, people were like, right, but I have many other questions about it. And I was like, I thought I clarified it, and it still wasn't clear for people. So... Yeah, it's like you basically have to go through every character. What I think for the Morph video, what we would need to do is we need to go through every character that Morph transformed into, and then analyze all of it, and then give you character by character, and then give you some potential ones that, like, if Morph were to change into this character, what do we think would happen? Because then people, like, I mentioned like 2 things, and then people are like, but what about this character? And what about this thing? And I was like, I think I addressed it, but I didn't specifically mention that one. So then I had to go back and clarify about like how Quicksilver's powers are physical. So that's a whole thing. And then I was like, oh man, this is a lot.
Another character, a Forge. I feel there could have been.
Forge got done dirty, I think.
I love that you put him as the thumbnail, by the way. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was Duck made this thumbnail, and I was like, yeah, that feels right, because I feel like the one thing I was thinking is, like, I feel like Sasha and I are gonna have to talk about Forge and be like, what happened with that? What happened with that, guys?
Did you have the same double take moment, by the way, when Bishop wandered in and called him Daniel? I did like. I
was like,
wait, whoa! I wasn't prepared.
I will say, I think season 2, we are gonna get, like, maybe we're gonna get our Forge moments in season 2.
I think so.
I think they're coming, but there's so many opportunities that we had to not do Forge like this, and yet we just did. Like, we made Forge seem like such a jerk, and kind of someone that's like, I don't want to say useless. I don't think he was useless, but...
No, because he was incredibly useful, but it's just because so much of it kind of happened off to the side.
Over here, It
wasn't explained. It's like, by the way, I'm also a shaman. It's like, not everybody knows that. We should...
like, okay, well, this is the other thing I didn't like. Even though, I don't know, am I wrong for not liking this? Let me know. Let me know. Everyone can let me know in the chat. You can let me know, Sasha, what you think. But when he was like, oh yeah, that's like my mom's book, and I learned some stuff from my mom, I just kind of like picked it up. I was like, wow, that's is that really what we're going with? I'm like, he was like training his whole life to like be a shaman, like shaman of his tribe, like kind of an important part of Forge's character. And I think the other thing was, I was really excited because when the Adversary showed up, I was like, oh, maybe we're going to be going into like shaman Forge territory. And I feel like in modern day comics, that's something that we constantly forget about now. It like never comes up, and I love it so much, the mystical. It's also cool because Forge is like a very technological person, so to have a character that is both technological and mystical is like, ooh, that's nice. And then they were just like, yeah, I like picked some stuff up in like my mom's book, and I was like, what? So
I was really distracted by them Doctor Stranging the magic for the first little bit before that filtered in. I was like, oh, cool, MCU Doctor Strange magic style. So
yeah, I was like, whoa, that's all right. I guess we're just gonna that's when you do magic. It's Doctor Strange now. That's the way that magic is.
Well, I mean, it looks cool, so.
I mean, it does look cool, but I was also like, is Doctor Strange gonna pop up? Like, we could make magic look different. I guess it's nice for people that are watching that are familiar with.
Yeah, I thought it was a good visual cue.
Yeah.
Just I think for me, it just boils down to how they handled life death, because life death is a bit complicated, and it is a romantic story, and they are really clicking and connecting, but it does have that moment of that kind of underlying awkwardness behind how it's happening, and just because they pushed it through so fast with the whole I love you at like that moment, it's just
the worst moment to say to someone I love you. I was like, wow, I feel bad for what we're doing with Forge here. I'm like, this man he's got more moves than that. Like, they made him seem so like not oh, hello, Nerd Incorrect. Thank you so much for rating. So not smooth in that moment. Also, Scribbles, thank you for the stretch. And Scribbles, congrats on the 3-stream streak. Thanks for streaking. Nerd Incorrect, welcome on in. We have some raiders over on Twitch. 21 people. Hello. Welcome in. We're talking about X-Men 97 season 1. We're doing a recap. I'm here with my friend, my guest from Casually Comics over on YouTube. So if you all like the beauty that is X-Men 97, come geek out with us and talk X-Men. Welcome on in, Raiders. Thank you so much, Tim, for raiding. I appreciate you. Sidewalk Dave, thank you for following. And Platinum Blonde, thank you for the 500 bits. Hey, appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all rocking it. Nerding Correct says, oh man, I still need to watch the first 96. No spoilers.
Unfortunately, this is not the no spoiler space.
We're going to be getting into
opposite.
spoilers. I should probably also preface that for any raiders that just came in. Just a heads up, we are talking all the spoilers. We're like, about like midway, I would say, though. So we're not like near the end and all the end spoilers yet. So it depends on where you are in the show. I know some people were waiting to watch it until it all came out. I know some people still haven't seen it, which I'm like, you need to watch it.
Yeah, I did a poll.
I need to talk to you about it.
I did a poll about like how many people had watched it or hadn't.
I saw that. Yeah.
There was I think a good 33%. And of course that you can't take those stats as anything because, they're not, that's not a hard science or anything, but it was interesting just to see the percentage. But I'm like, there are lots of factors in that, like, having to go get Disney Plus if you're planning not to yo-ho and all of that stuff. So
yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum. Yeah, I can't believe how many people, I mean, there's a lot of people that have seen it, a lot of people that haven't seen it. That's also another question. Some people have been asking about like how successful was this show. I don't think we'll ever really know though, because streaming numbers are a super secret. So secrecy.
Well, there's that vague 6% out there from that pie chart that came out. But the thing is that numbers don't lie, but they can be very easily manipulated. So it's like, depending upon what you want to say, you can make that 6% sound really good, or you can make it sound really bad.
I think it also depends on what you're expecting for the show to do. Like, it is also, like, people are like, it's not as big as, like, live action. And I'm like, well, it is animated. So those are kind of two different categories. So they're hard to compare.
I'm just kind of like, if you take just like a vague, like quick maths of like 6% of the like Q earnings, which was like 153 million subs, I'm like, honestly, that's not bad.
That's not bad. Yeah, I agree.
I'll take that.
I think 6%. It did pretty good. Also, if it gets people reading some comics, then that's a success to me, in my opinion.
Oh, that's been fun. That's been a lot of fun, seeing people go back and revisit the comics, be excited about X-Men.
I think a lot of us
fun.
Have done that. And I think that's a beautiful gift that the show has given, like, so many of us X-Men fans. And people that are new, too, to the comics. There are some people that I've heard that are like, this is, like, making me want to go read the comics. And I'm like, ooh, yay.
No, that's always exciting. And I see that they're actually trying to tap into that with their marketing and for the new From the Ashes that they're doing. I'm like, good, this is actually quasi decent marketing. So, which is rare in the comic space. So I'm like, keep doing
it. Also, Danny, thank you so much for the 2 gifted subs. Appreciate you. A hype train just started. We are in hype train territory over on Twitch. Also, DeCarlo, Chris, thank you so much for throwing 500 more bits. I think we just reached like my bits goal or something. I should I don't know. I think we smashed that goal. Thank you so much, everybody, for the support. Welcome on in the Data Wizard and a Shadow of Light to the Fang Gang over on Twitch. Appreciate y'all. I also have a question that Tevye put a highlighted. Let me see if I did this right. I did. I starred a few things, guys. I'm going to try to keep an eye on chat now. I'm going to star some of the things you're saying. And then when there's a moment, I'll pull them up. And obviously super chats and things like that, highlighted comments, things like that, it would get priority. I also have Twitch open because we're not talking about a comic this time, so I can actually watch when y'all redeem things, follow and do stuff. So I'm keeping an eye on you over there. Also, Zenon and I'm Brendan. Thank you so much for following over on Twitch. Tevye says, question, do you think we'll get Onslaught and X-23 on this show?
I think we could still get Onslaught, although if we do...
I think Onslaught's going to be season 3.
I have to say, I'm really pleased with how they handled the psychic attack portion of Fatal Attractions. I really appreciated that flip on it and the rebuilding and their moments in there. And it's no secret to people who follow me that the Charles and Eric relationship is just one of my favorite to follow. It's so fascinating and interesting. And
we need to talk about that.
Those are some of my favorite moments. I'm like, I love these, everything happening here. I love it. So
I am with you. I feel like when we had that very centric um episode with, well, part of the episode. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the Fatal Attractions episode, I think, near the end now. Now we're getting into some end stuff.
Yes.
But with Charles and Magneto, whoa! Y'all are going crazy over on Twitch right now. Latinum Blonde, thank you so much for the 3-stream streak. And thank you to this beautiful anonymous gifter who just gifted 5 subs. Thank you. That's so lovely of you. I love your mysterious self, whoever you are. Thank you. And I like the mystery. I'm going to imagine it's like Wolverine or something in the chat. Thanks, Wolverine. But yeah, that whole bit where they're just, where like Charles is like, I've got you.
I have you. I'll always have you.
I'll always have you. I was like, man, I think I texted you after and I was like, so I already like had this ship in my head. Like it's existed and it just,
you were on that
near the back.
Train?
Yeah, I've been on that train for like a while. It sits near the back of my head, and then every now and then there'll just be something that happens, whether it's animated or comics or whatever, and I'll be like, oh, there it is. And then it comes back to the front. And that moment was just like, and it was really good because having gone back and rewatched, we also planted those seeds at the beginning as well, with Magneto talking about how, you know, Charles is like always in his mind. And yeah, like how he's like always loved him. I was
like a kind of gentle resting presence, which has been a thing for a while, but like not necessarily in the context of the 92 show, but it's overall, it's been a thing.
A thing. Yeah.
It was very First Class vibes. I was just like, oh, now I have to think about First Class again.
The good and the bad of First Class.
Yes, the good and the bad of First Class. The Charles and the Eric and the everything else of First Class.
Boy. Nicholas, thank you so much for following over on Twitch. So Alice is saying, what do you guys want to see in season 2?
I want to see New Mutant stuff and the main like present timeline. I want to see more Cable, as always, young Cable. And I'm excited for whatever they do with Apocalypse. I'm curious if we're going to do some Ramatut stuff. I'm just excited to see where we're going.
Oh, I'm wondering if we're going to like team up with Apocalypse. Do you think that might happen? I don't know why, but I'm just getting like a vibe. It's not actually based on anything, just FYI. Mm-hmm. It's based on nothing. It's just based on, I don't know, my dreams, I guess.
I would like to see maybe the pacing, even though watching it over again, I feel is a bit more even though I know part of that is because I'm now used to it and know what to expect. I'd like to see something slow down just a teensy bit, because there were still some things where I was like, we just went right through that, didn't we?
Yep. I will say, I think in season 2, I want Dazzler to come back. That's one of my biggest dreams. I am so sad about Dazzler. But, you know, I have a theory that Dazzler could be one of the 4 horsemen. Maybe,
I've heard that.
Be brought back. Yeah. I like that theory because then I can have Dazzler alive. So I would like if that was true. But I feel like also for season 2, I just really want a lot of Forge and Bishop, because I feel like both of them kind of got snubbed in season 1 a little bit. And like, I understand, not really snubbed, because it's really like we had to focus on some other stuff.
I feel like less like they were snubbed and more like, I feel more like Forge was a bit sidelined. But for Bishop, I feel like more like he was being placed. Because I'm like, okay, we're establishing and placing Bishop so that we can deal with Bishop things later on, was more the vibe I felt. Whereas with Forge, for me, felt a bit more uneven, and the way he was utilized sometimes felt a bit more plot devicey to me, especially in 6. So...
Yeah. Also, okay, we were talking about Forge, then we got distracted with some stuff, and I have some comments I'm going to get to in a second from the chat. But yeah, also, yes, Critter Nation, just to quickly answer you, yes. Dazzler was on Genosha, and she was confirmed as dead as a doornail. Tragic. From Beau DeMayo. So, I mean, you know, things could change. We're going to have a different showrunner. So, like, things could change. But he did say dead. It's confirmed. Just like how we brought her onto the X-Men in the comics and then dead. It's a great time to be a Dazzler fan. But you know what? We're getting a Dazzler miniseries, so I can't complain too much.
You're getting also a bunch of Dazzler disco covers. I read the Never Ending August solicits last night.
Yes. I'm so excited for the disco covers. But yeah, so with Forge, the other thing that I felt was really weird was like his relationship with Storm obviously was weird. But because the timing was a little
thing is, I still liked it because I like that relationship in general, but I'm just like,
right, but is that because of the comics or is that because of the show? Whoa.
It could be both.
It could be both. What I didn't like was just that like they had this falling out and then they immediately like it was just like and now we're in love and I was like wait but did we resolve? I feel like we skipped a step.
For me, I just felt that the entire her getting her powers back and the way the adversary stuff was handled for me didn't entirely land, even though I really liked the layout of the scenes surrounding it. I loved the music, I loved the imagery, and all of that was really cool. I just didn't feel that the surrounding dialogue and build-up worked, at least for me personally.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, I liked what they did with Storm, but I just feel like there's some dots that we needed to connect that to fully make that feel realized and stuff that got missed. Okay, let's go to some of these. Y'all are chatting, and we also got a $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Dante Cook. So we're gonna go to you first. No, really X-Men, not really X-Men related, but me and a buddy watched all of X-Men. Postseason, we talked about how nice it was having a good show to look forward to every week. It was like being a kid with cable again. Was it similar for you? Yes.
Yeah, I would say
it's still similar for me.
Well, it's like
go back.
We would text after like every time. It was just like, oh, have you watched it yet? Like, you need to text me once you're done.
We'd like, one of us would watch it and then be like, okay, like, I don't know if you've watched it yet. So just let me know so that we can, because I have things I need to talk to you about. And that is my favorite thing. It was like, really, the show is great on its own, right? Like, it really does stand up. But it's like the experience that you have, like watching it with other people and like geeking out about it and just having a great time.
It was a fun fandom to be a part of. And as much as I can and do enjoy like nerdy hobbies in a solitary fashion, it's really nice when you have that space and that excitement. It's just a good vibe and feeling when there's a place where it's like, oh, people are excited and they want to talk about this. People know who Bastion is and I can make a statement and they'll know what I'm talking about. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it's nice. It makes it like accessible for a lot of people. I think it just you know, especially in a show where we're talking about like how divided people are and like how it's hard to like come together, and that's like a lot of the stuff in the show. It really made me be like, man, but like look at this, look how unified we all are. And like even when we don't agree on stuff that's X-Men, it doesn't matter because I'm like, we're all just here and we all just love the X-Men. And so on that point we can all agree. So that I'm sad that it's over, even though there's other shows coming up, but I just don't know if it's going to be on that level. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe House of the Dragon might be on that level for me.
Well, I think for me, what I was impressed, a different vibe. What I was impressed by was the fact that for me, it managed to, I know it didn't do this for everybody, but it managed to escape the whole, oh, this is just a nostalgia bait show. Because I'm like, it wasn't, though. It was a show that was more of a tribute paying homage to those things. It was very much loving and respectful, but it wasn't just a nostalgia grab because it also did a lot of its own update type things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Uptown Duck says, Charles is always inside my mind.
Is your brain unshackled?
Oh my gosh, what were we talking about where there was recently it was in Resurrection of Magneto. I am power.
Men call me Magneto.
Also, I think there's a reference to it because I went back when Beau DeMayo was like, "Oh, by the way, the Pride of the X-Men might be some homework for you guys when we were watching the show." So I went back and I watched the pilot, and there's also a reference to it in there that I was like, "Wow, I did not notice this before when I watched this." Although that show also, I was disappointed because I was expecting so many more things. I was there and like every little thing that I noticed.
Like, ooh, what am I watching
like,
for?
Ooh, is it gonna be this? Is it gonna be that? And then everyone was like, I think it was just a general wash. Like I think it was because like the asteroid M, and I was like, right, yeah, no, that was in there, but it's not. I'm like going too deep. I went too deep. Also, I was like, oh, does that mean that Kitty's gonna show up? No, that's not what happened at all. But that would have been great. Mr. Cynic says Dark Beast, please. I feel like, anything's possible if you dream. I feel like just more Beast in general, please, is what I feel. I feel like Beast, I mean, he'd get some things to do, but I hope we get more Beast next season, too.
Well,
Beast
was there, and Beast he was on brand, so...
yeah, Beast was on brand. He was doing his thing. I will say... George Bauza was one of the people that was there at Phoenix Fan Fusion, and I felt like when I was there, I hope that he was busier throughout, but I was like, I feel like no one is lining up to see Beast, and then I was like, I feel like I should have gone to see Beast because that would have been awesome, because I do love Beast, but then I thought, season 1 wasn't like our best Beast showcase. He did some cool stuff though. He did some cool stuff. He was in the Sentinel. That was the thing.
I think what just impressed me was that they managed to keep the cadence and tone of the jokes that they used to have him say back in the day. And I'm like, oh, they're actually landing.
They're doing it. Yeah, and they fit. They fit well. And I will say, Beast had that moment near the end when he was like, look, this whole thing is going to fall. Everything's basically going to shit. And he was like, but I think
if we work together.
If we all work together, I have a plan. But then the plan didn't really work, but I really wanted that to be like Beast's like big moment where like he was the plan guy and he came up with some brilliant scheme. Not what happened, but for a moment there, I was like, oh, this is a nice Beast moment. The fact that he came up with a plan, I think, was pretty cool. Anyways, when something is falling out of the sky and is about to destroy New York City, the fact that he was able to do something about that is pretty cool.
Oh my gosh, which was the solicit that they just did where they were like, some people were like, oh, we need to, it was the Fantastic Four and they were going to like take a break in New York City or something. And I was like, why would you do that?
It's take a break in New York City?
I'm just like, no, you can't do that in the Marvel universe. Things are going to explode and fall on you. It's not.
Yeah, you can't just take a break. You got to keep an eye on that.
In the last episode, when they're flashing through cameos and the like, and you see that little Easter egg with spoilers with Peter and MJ. How do you feel about some people being like, he's shirking his duty? Like, Spider-Man truly is a menace.
Oh, I saw so many people being like, where were the Avengers? Where is Spider-Man? This is not fair the way people were mad. People were like, how dare they not let the Avengers help? And I was like, okay, well, first of all, the Avengers thing, they did confirm that the Avengers, a lot of them, obviously not all of them, because we know Cap is there. Iron Man was there. But a lot of them are actually off-world, dealing with something else that's actually happening at that time in the comics. What's that event called? I can't remember it off the top of my head. They're in space. Basically, there's a whole thing. You can look it up. I have zero notes right now, so this is all straight from my little brain. So yeah, people probably will also tell me in chat. I'm going to wait for you, the brilliant people in chat, to call it out. I know you know what it is. But so that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Spider-Man probably has other things going on. I mean, I thought that whole thing in general was a bit silly because I was like, this is X-Men. This is the X-Men show. So I'm like, if you want to see Spider-Man getting in there and doing stuff, let's go watch the Spider-Man show. And then that's when we see Spider-Man.
I thought it was a cute nod. I was wondering if it was one of those placements to see if you could drum up enthusiasm to plant some seeds. But I know they are doing another Spider-Man show, and it's not that. It's
I think they're going to bring it back, though. Do you think they're going to bring back Spider-Man?
I don't know. I mean, it would be... I would enjoy it, but that definitely would have some nostalgia vibes, though.
Mr. Cynic says, "What's Spidey gonna do about an asteroid? I don't know.
He could
Catch it.
help.
I don't
He
know.
could help on the streets like Daredevil. Daredevil
Yeah.
was trying
I
Cloak and Dagger.
A Cloak and Dagger. I loved seeing Cloak and Dagger. I was like, wow, that's a deep cut. Apparently, it's the real Mary Jane. Yes, I believe this. I believe this. Oh, what was I gonna say? We did see Spider-Man when the Prime Sentinels were attacking.
Yes,
though,
they
and
did
he
that whole
was flipping
flip
around.
and like.
Yeah, so he was helping. He does stuff, but you know, sometimes it's like, well, I don't know. That's Asteroid M, so that seems like I'd be like, that's not really my thing. That's somebody else's thing.
For me, I'm like, this was a meta placement. I'm like, this was there because I think they really wanted to show him next to MJ.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I think that's why. Honestly,
So you got to show him as him as opposed to like, you know, Spider-Man in
yeah,
action.
I'm like, I don't think
otherwise MJ can't be there. It doesn't really make sense.
Like, I don't think it's that deep. I think they just wanted to have that nice
unless
flash.
MJ is jackpot and that happens, but I hope not. Please no. Please don't do that to me. Balls Monkey says, I kind of wish they went Onslaught. Given all the cameos, I would have loved to see them adapt Onslaught versus Marvel Universe. I think they will eventually go Onslaught, but
I think they still could, and I think because of what they've done with the aftermath of that attack, if it does happen, it'll be even sadder. I think it will hurt more if we do it now.
I think that they're being smart if we're doing Onslaught. You have to remember, in the comics, the road to Onslaught was long, and I think they're trying to give us that vibe. You know, it's still in a condensed way, though, probably. Like, I don't think we're going to be waiting for, like, years and years, but we're going to be waiting for maybe, like, a year. Maybe.
Yeah, Onslaught is something that could stand to be faster. Like, there are some...
Get in, get out. Onslaught, here he is. Deal with it, the end. But, you know, I think the seeds have been planted if we want to go that way. Xenon says, who do you think Forge will recruit for the new X-Men team? I'm thinking Emma, Colossus, Archangel, and maybe Shadowcat. Like in the show?
Yeah, because that's where a lot of people are thinking that we're going.
Like in the future? Future X-Men team, though? Because we're probably going to the future, right? With Bishop. Or you mean like, you think after Forge is going to have a team because he's like one of the last X-Men that's there.
DeCarlo was saying the present.
The present. Oh. I mean, well, he's got to do some time travel-y stuff first. But I think, yeah, I mean, Emma definitely, because we did see her in the show.
I hope they do more with Emma, because otherwise that's one of those moments that I feel is a little referencey to be referencey.
Yeah, I think they are going to do more with her, though. I have faith that it's not just like, oh, that was
Remember
just
her
like,
diamond form?
We did the thing. Remember, it happens in E is for Extinction. We did it. There you go. You're welcome. And then we're like, right, but does it mean anything? And they're like, nope, we're never going to talk about it again. That's that done. Yeah, I think Emma for sure could be a person. I mean, I would love if Kitty was one of the people. I would love that. I would love Shadowcat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know who would be on that team, though. Who do we have left? Is Kurt around? Kurt's still around. We don't know what happened to him. There's people that we haven't seen, and where did they go? And
Kurt
what is
was
their
there.
life?
He bamped. He bamped beside them in the future.
In the future. Oh yeah, he's in the future. Okay.
He bamped. We need Logan. We're missing very injured
Storm.
We're missing Storm. We're missing very injured Logan.
Very injured Logan. Yeah. We're missing Morph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely they're probably going to bring in some other folks. Archangel would also be a cool one to see, honestly. I love Angel. So I would be down for that. Duck is saying, if Chris Redfield can punch a boulder, Spider-Man can punch an asteroid. It's just science. Little Jeff emote.
I'd watch
Thank
that.
you for the super chat.
Spider-Man punch an asteroid.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's what I would be thinking. I wasn't thinking punch it, but I was thinking he might just like catch it because he's really strong. So like maybe that's the solution. That whole thing, can we just talk about that whole moment as well that happened in the comics, or in the show. Also, this is the thing that I kept doing. Did you keep doing this? I kept talking about the show, and I'd be like, in the comics, and I'd be like, wait, this is the comics. This is the show.
No, but what I would do
Wait,
sometimes is I would
confused.
transpose episode and issue. So it would be like in this issue, like, you know,
In this issue, I mean episode. I mean, wait, which one am I talking about?
thing that we saw.
In the story that happened. Yeah, wait, what was I just saying? I was saying that oh no. What was I saying?
You wanted to discuss a moment. We were
Oh, I
talking
did.
about asteroids.
Oh, the asteroid. Yeah. How do you feel about what happened with that and the way that all went down? The idea of, you know, I know what we'll do. We'll shoot this asteroid down, and then the humans being like, "Oh no, the asteroid will fall on us."
It's just,
And then the X-Men being like, "Now we need to save the humans again, even though they literally just tried to kill us."
The Magneto protocol. I was hoping for a bit more. I thought we would have a bit more in this protocol that just we're gonna blow it up. But it was nice to see the folder flip open and had all those Easter eggs inside, all the names of the people who have like played Magneto and stuff. And so it's like, oh, that's a nice little cute Easter egg in there. I was like, for me, that moment was fine. It made sense in the context of what was going on. I think the way they built it into the episode made sense, especially coming at the crux of their attempting to be the bigger people with Bastion. So I felt like the timing of that worked really well. And I think thematically it was where and what it needed to be. Mm-hmm. I just kind of wish that the Magneto protocol itself had been a bit more impressive.
Protocol-y? Yeah. That there was more to it.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I thought it was great. I thought it was so ridiculous, but like in just the right way. Like the humans doing that and then being like, oh, wait a minute. Like, wait, we're right under it. That's gonna be a problem. And then panicking and being like, curse these mutants. I'm like, you just did that.
That is always the asteroid solution though. And like anything, it's like, we're going to blow it up. Like, we're going to send the thing and it's going to break into small chunks and it'll be fine. And then it's like, oh, it didn't
never
break into
happens,
small chunks and we're not fine.
We won't be fine, actually. Actually, it'll be catastrophic.
Chemdog is saying it could have been the anyone protocol.
Could have been the anyone protocol?
It's true.
It's true. Yeah. Tevia says, wow, this is chonky. Question. I'm going to switch to this because, wow, that's chonky. Question. Speaking of the season, how do you feel about Gambit's death? Because I found that death to be awesome and badass, but super tragic. And also with Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Mary Jane reunited, do you believe this will lead to Spidey 98, which opens the door for my girl, Mayday Parker, Spider-Girl in the future? Because for me, I'd be so happy to see both shows exist side by side, in my opinion. Question mark.
I would love a Spider-Girl show. I think that would be so fun if we did like an MC2 style Spider-Girl show, just in general, like just if that was there. I think that would be a lot of fun. That run, I think, is just a lot of fun in general.
I agree. I think it would just be an interesting show to do just MC2 as a thing. I think that would be really fun. I think that's a really fun universe, and I think, it doesn't get featured as much now.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it kind of feels like a blip that happened. But I'm like, there were some cool parts of the
very cool parts. Yeah, and I think it would be like a really cute show too. I think it just has so much potential. I love like Peter. Let's let Peter grow up and see what happens.
Yeah, Dad Parker.
Yeah, Dad Parker. I mean, we already kind of like have something we could build on with that because we do have Spider-Verse and we do have Dad Parker.
And so it's like if you wanted to go in that direction, you kind of have that built in.
Yeah,
I still love Gambit's death. That's a weird statement. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean by it.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it was done so brilliantly. It was so devious, and
I like the way they let it sit. And I know that they're seeding that he's coming back. For me, that doesn't take away from it. I think it's still a very strong moment because if they bring him back the way it looks, it's still going to hit. it's just like how they said they were steering clear of time travel, which wasn't entirely true. What they steered clear of was it was all a dream style time traveler, like that quick, like, oh, we just went back. What they did was
we just
something
reset it, and it never ever happened, so we never have to think of it again.
Different. So it's kind of like, because if Gambit comes back the way he will, it'll still, like, the death will still matter. So for me, that still lands and it still works. And those moments, like, for example, when I was talking earlier about how I felt that the Storm plot was a bit kind of like, my daughter was like in tears. So like she was so like invested, and like every episode is Storm getting her powers back? Is Storm better? Like, what happened to Storm? So like I don't know. I think it really just depends. I think it really hits in terms of, I think the pacing and stuff really lands a bit, especially for the younger, people, in my opinion. Because like for her, it was like 80 million years with the Storm without powers. So
yeah. I mean, I also kind of liked that, like, I liked the shift too. That was like the
midpoint shift.
Yeah, the midpoint shift, and just like the whole, like, we're getting a totally new look, and then the look is actually the retro look, and I don't know. I just thought all of that was done like in a really cool way. And it was interesting because there were some people that were critiquing the Mohawk. I'm not going to talk about the people who were just critiquing the Mohawk because they don't even understand the context of the Mohawk. But there were some people that were critiquing the Mohawk because they felt that the Mohawk was part of a very transformative period in Storm's life, and that we were doing the Mohawk without like what it actually is supposed to like represent for Storm in terms of like where she's at in her life. And then they actually like made that part of the story too. So it was cool because we got these two very different looks, and they're very much like representing this kind of like different era of Storm in her life, which was
I saw that there were some mixed opinions on the costumes. Like, some people were really excited to see all the different costumes, and some felt that they were being thrown in a bit like willy-nilly, or they didn't enjoy just how the eras were being shuffled around. For me, I didn't mind it. It was a bit of a like, ooh, look at that costume. But I did feel they tried to at least contextualize it inside of the show as to like why we were swapping costumes, or at least have moments to explain how it was happening. Like when Jubilee goes to the mall, it's like, oh, it's my new costume now.
Yeah, I personally liked all of the costume changes. I actually liked Jubilee's costume change because I felt like it was very Jubilee to be like, I'm just gonna buy this outfit and that's my new costume. But I don't know though. I have a bias, and my bias is I love a costume change. So I think it would be really hard for them to do it and for me to be like mad at the costume change, because I'm like, unless it was something that was completely ridiculous. But even then, I do love ridiculous costumes. Like at the beginning when we got the big Trial of Magneto, the M and the gloves, I was like, I love this costume. It's so just extra, and it's so...
I'm still hoping for the one
dramatic.
with like the cape chain. I'm like, you cheated me out of that costume.
I hope that I see someone cosplaying as Robe Magneto. That's what I want from Savage Land from X-Men 97. If I can find someone, if there is someone out there that is going to be a Robe Magneto at, San Diego Comic-Con, please let's find each other, because I want to take pictures with you, because that's my dream. Dante, thank you again for the super chat. Dante says, R.I.P. Storm's Mohawk. We lost it way too fast. I mean, that was a sad part. I guess that is the sad part with the costume changes too, is that when we get a costume change, it means like, now this costume is like back in the closet. And it's like, if you loved that costume, it is tragic. And I did love the Mohawk. So
I love the Cockrum costume though.
It's
and like
so
just
good.
That look. I really love that look.
Yeah.
I know everybody's just wearing a swimsuit back in like those costume designs, but I really like them.
I love a swimsuit costume, Also, really great if you're cosplaying in the summer. I love a swimsuit costume because it's actually very comfortable. If you're like, it's the middle of the hottest time of the year. Perfect. Great. Dan is saying, are we talking about the original recipe X-Men? I'm here for X-Men 97. Outside of the mistake of not including T'Challa as Black Panther, this is the X-Men story a lot of the fans deserved. I also wanted T'Challa in here. But, Dan, I think we're the weirdos. I think I'm going to be real with you. Sasha, were you hoping for T'Challa at any point? Did you have dreams? of Black Panther
Not,
showing up?
not strong dreams. I was just surprised that they put as many people in as they did. I appreciate a cameo. For me, some of them were a bit like, ooh, look at them, here they are. But at the same time, I did appreciate that feeling of trying to make the universe a little bit bigger, but I would also have been fine if there weren't any. So I'm like, I'm not the mark for cameos, basically.
Right. So you're like, cameos are cool, but also I don't need cameos. That's
Yeah, pretty
also fun.
much.
Yeah. I mean, I think here's the thing. I think I like a cameo, but I don't want the cameo to detract too much from the main story unless it's like actually built into it. Like what they did with Captain America to me is like a great way to do a cameo because we had Cap there, but Cap was also doing something for the story, doing something for Rogue, showing like this tension that's building. Actually, I think something that I really loved about the Bright Eyes episode, just to talk about that one a little bit more, is the way that the tension is built and like all of the layers that we see of it and how it's like at each corner, like you kind of know it's coming because they're like, oh, like the UN is like, oh, we're done searching Genosha. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's frustrating, but sure. And then it's like, oh, and, you know, Rogue is on this mission. And then she's like, well, Cap, maybe we could like team up. And he's like, well, it's not really a great time for me to be teaming up with mutants. And it's like, oh, that's awful. And then, you know, Roberto's going and confronting his mom. And then his mom is like, well, you can be a mutant. Just like, let's not tell anyone about it. Like, shush. Just, it's all cool. But like, we don't want anyone to know about that.
Keep it on the DL.
Yeah. And it's just every corner, that prejudice that you come up against, like that wall that you're hitting. But at the same time, I was always hopeful that like someone was going to be like, no, like, of course I want to team up with the mutants. I was both hopeful, but also expectant of to be disappointed by people. And I love that they were able to build that tension without me like I wasn't surprised by it, but at the same time the hope never was lost from me. I wanted people to be better, but I was never surprised when they disappointed me.
I really appreciate that episode because I feel like it presents the necessary optics of the other side quite well. And so that's one of the things that I very much enjoyed because I'm always looking at the X-Men from an in-universe perspective of like, okay, we need to also look at the bigger picture, which is something that I often get into discussions with in comments for people who are not doing that, who are looking at it from a more allegorical level, but I'm always very much looking at it on a narrative basis. So I appreciate that this episode did that as well. And so that was one of the reasons I felt it was very strong. And it's one of the reasons why it's up there for me as a top episode.
Yeah, it is a really good episode. Bright Eyes is a really good one. I mean, there's just the one thing I will say is I feel like I go back to all of these episodes and there's something in there that I'm always like, oh man, that part is really good. Like I haven't, like even with Motendo, there's stuff in there that I still like really enjoy. I really love like a lot of the art in that episode and this idea of us going into like, and the inclusion of like the game in that episode. It's just so fun. Man, I will say, I wish we had a little bit more fun. I feel like we didn't get a lot of time for that in this season. There's fun, but, you know, it's like few and far between. There's a lot of heavy stuff we had to get through. I mean, it's important. I like heavy stuff, but...
It's also an indication of just the changing and the serialized format of some things. Not that X-Men 92 didn't have serialized elements, but they're just a lot stronger now in terms of the expectation of how shows are presented. There's definitely been a shift in that from the 90s to today. So it was interesting also to see that play out in this new series.
I mean, I was also kind of talking about this the other day, even with Doctor Who, and it's this idea for me of like, you know, I remember the days when you'd put on a show and it would be like this little self-contained like nugget. And you'd be like, oh, there's like these characters that I know and whatever. There's overarching stuff and that's all carrying over. But, you know, you just have an episode that's like a fun story and you don't have to have watched anything else. You can just like jump in. And I feel like as time moves forward, we're just moving away a little bit more from that format. And I think you could still kind of do that with X-Men 97, but really it's at its strongest as a full unit. And so that is a thing that I would have loved to see more of, but I also feel like maybe that's old-fashioned of us to want that now. I don't know.
I don't think it's old-fashioned. I think it's just a byproduct of the seasons being a lot shorter too.
Right.
Because it's like there's a sweet
It's also
spot.
like things are really expensive.
There's a sweet spot that you can hit because you'll see some shows, especially in the old 26, 22 like episode format, where it's like, this is too long and we are stretching and we are padding and there is just not enough content. But then there are other things where we're like, if we just had like a few more to round this out. I always think about like the TNG formula, which for me, I really enjoy, even though I do really appreciate what DS9 does with serialization in its own series. But TNG has these moments where you're like, what's Data doing? Data's having a day doing stuff. And it's like, I really appreciate those moments. But when you have something so tight, like what they were doing with X-Men 97, that's to me why something like Nintendo feels a bit more out of place. Because I feel like when you get so used to that condensed, tight, like amount of episodes and format, it's a bit more difficult to then be like, but also let's revert to filler. It's just a bit of a different mindset, I find.
Yeah, that's true. Still, it makes me sad. I just wish we could have that leeway a little bit more and have like those episodes. And I mean, you can still do it, but you have to be a little bit smarter, I guess, with how you do it. Sometimes you got to give us 2 stories in one episode, maybe.
I think Nintendo is a strong attempt.
Yeah, at that. Yeah.
I just feel like it also it's just kind of, to me, sticks out in a way
like
that
a sore thumb.
Like the way the other episodes don't.
Yeah, because, well, it's the one thing that isn't like fitting with the vibe of like everything else exactly. And like there's moments like the whole idea of Jubilee, having to just accept this thing of like, I need to like grow up and like I need to like be responsible and like I'm not the kid I was anymore and all of that stuff, and like things are serious.
That was the other thing that didn't work for me in that episode, because we're coming off of that from her interactions with Roberto in the first episode, where they were flipped and he was at the club and he was like, you need to like come and stuff. And then I was like, but now we're here and now we just flipped it and it feels very abrupt to me. So,
but I mean, maybe that, see, to me, I see what you're saying with that, but I also feel like it might be the idea of Jubilee kind of already knows that she's growing up, but she's not like ready to let go of it. So it's like when she's put in the place, she can do it. But it's kind of acknowledging that that's already what's happening to you. Like, it's this idea of Jubilee being like, I don't want to grow up, but it's like, girl, you already are. Like, you already are the person that, you have this new person coming in and you're being like, well, like, we're the X-Men and like, we have to be this way and you can't just goof off. And then she's being like, but I do want to goof off. But it's like, right.
Yeah, because her episode also functions a bit as foreshadowing for a couple of things. It functions like for tonal foreshadowing of what's going to happen, and also some battle foreshadowing for the last episode.
Yeah.
With
with Magneto.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very true. I just noticed that now. Whoa. That's very cool. Also, we have a few more comments here that I've highlighted. This one was from a while ago, but Justice for Darwin.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That would be, I mean, justice for a lot of people. I was saying, I love that Exodus was in Genosha and then all of that happened. And I was like, that would have been a good person to like get involved because he's really powerful. But I have this headcanon that Exodus like saw that coming and was like, yeah, I'm just gonna leave. Like, I'm just not gonna get involved in this.
Today.
Not today. Sorry, I got somewhere to be. Because that would have been a great mutant to have us help, This is the other thing. It's like there's all these mutants and it's just like just all dead. It's like, okay, well, I guess a lot of them, they were just kind of useless. I don't know. Justice for Leech, man, I feel bad for all the Morlocks. Someone was asking me the other day, where can I go to like read like more Morlock stuff, and or like where are Morlocks in modern comics right now? And I was like, oh, there's not a lot of Morlocks. I was like, in Marauders is what we said. The first Marauders volume from the Krakoan era. There's some more Morlock stuff, and Mask is in there, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, if you like Morlocks, it's a rough time, man. Sad time for the Morlock fans. DiCarlo said, Beauty and the Beast, Amanda. I'm assuming in reference to me wanting Dazzler and wanting my Beast moments. Yeah, I'm down for some Beauty and the Beast. We could. I think it might be a weird time for it right now, but yeah, I'm down.
You're down for anything that gets Dazzler back. So
Anything that gets Dazzler back, and I do think Beauty and the Beast is a fun little moment in our Dazzler history. It's a fun little mini. Sean says, "OMG, Sasha." I like that. But yeah, so what have we talked about? So we talked about episode 1. We talked about, how do you feel about the speech in episode 2?
Alvin has thoughts about the speech in episode.
Oh, Alvin is like, let me tell you about that speech.
While I enjoy that speech, I enjoy it if you look at it more from the head point of the fact that it is from Magneto's perspective, because there are some of the moments where he says things like, "I was only ever trying to avenge," and I'm like, I just watched Enter Magneto. Like, don't lie to me. But I appreciated that because I'm like, it feels very true to Magneto's own viewpoint, and I thought it was a very powerful and well implemented speech, and I think it works very well for the show and the themes that it's trying to get across. I do think that it doesn't necessarily need to be taken as gospel in terms of the character's actions inside of the show, but for me, I find that interesting. This is something I always run into, which is I always have lots of little narrative, like overarching questions about some of the things, because I don't think the X-Men work great as a direct allegory, but better as a metaphor. And so sometimes I find that the narratives are asking you to pull from more allegorical real life meta references to inform the text rather than the in-universe workings of the text.
Yes.
And so sometimes I find a bit of a friction there, not necessarily in that episode, but there is a moment in that episode, but it's not the speech. I think the speech is very strong.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to ask you what that moment is. I have an idea of what it might be. But I also will say that based on just what you said, that is one thing that I did feel going back to it, where at the time that I watched it, it felt like a lot more impactful. But I think it was also because, like, weirdly, it felt like they kind of predicted almost like what the response to this show was going to be coming back and people's takes on things. And so it felt like Magneto was like speaking to us. Like, I felt like I was like, he was reaching out. I felt a lot of episode 2 felt like it was reaching out to like bridge the gap between the audience and, the players and our X-Men and speaking to the world. And then having gone back and watched it just in terms of its the way it exists in a bigger context, I still really love that episode. But I will say it didn't feel like as impactful because now like the time has passed and I'm looking at it more in context of the entire story as opposed to like feeling like I'm being talked to directly, I guess. And yeah, I do agree with you that it's like that Magneto speech of this idea of like, yes, I understand what you're saying, Magneto, but also they're not what you've done.
Yeah, I'm like, they're not wrong when they label you as a mutant terrorist. I'm like, I have read a lot. I am proud.
And it's that whole thing too of later on in the show with the whole idea of like Magneto was right and all of that. And then when people were like, yeah, I was like, well, let's think about this a bit though.
There are a lot of moments for like where we downplay the EMP. I'm like, we have to, because if we fully go for some of where this could go, this would be bad. So like, yes, let's pull it back a little bit. But I think that Magneto just has a great arc overall. I'm like, this is a great showing of Magneto. I'm like, Magneto is such a wonderfully nuanced character. And I think this is such a strong showing for him. I love Magneto throughout this entire show, like from beginning to end. It's such a good time for him.
Yeah, it is a really good, like, speaking of characters that like really get a lot to do, Magneto is definitely up there. He's definitely one of the most. Magneto actually wasn't at Phoenix Fan Fusion, the voice actor that played him, but I know someone that knows him, so it would have been cool because I maybe could have like got to chill with him a little bit. But I was like, man, that would have been fascinating, because I just feel like this is, now we're like in a Magneto era, for better and for worse, because I feel like sometimes people say these things and I'm like, I feel like we need to like really unpack, like there's a lot to Magneto. However, that being said, I think that's also why he's such a fascinating character, right? There's this duality to him of, he's very real in the sense that he's not like a great guy, but at the end of the day, there's some redeeming qualities about him, because he does he does want to protect mutants for sure, but like also sometimes at what cost?
Sometimes at the cost of mutants themselves, because
sometimes
like
sometimes it's like, well, but are you hurting mutants? Yeah, that's oh, so the thing that you felt didn't resonate with you in episode 2.
Okay, so it is the doctor scene. It's
Right.
the doctor scene. The doctor scene works very well, again, from an allegorical standpoint, because that is something that happens and it's awful and atrocious. The thing is, when you place it into a world with mutants, I'm then like, okay, so do the powers manifest as like youths? Because if that's the case, this is a genuine concern. Like, are people exploding? Are mothers dying? Are doctors being killed? Like, I have genuine, actual questions.
I will say that's one
logistics
of the
of
prejudice
mutant
moments
pregnancies.
when we went back and I was watching it, where I actually kind of was like, okay, but like I understand being upset about it, because then you can't get care, because that's awful. But it's also kind of almost one of those moments where you're like, but that's actually like legit. Like,
because that's why I feel it doesn't fully work in universe. That's one of those moments where I'm like, we're pulling. You need me to pull from a more
a
outside
reference from outside. Yeah.
and
yeah,
then but inside, because I'm like, do the powers still manifest at puberty? Because that, like, there are so many because like in the scene before it, she's in a contraction, she rips the roof off the car, and I'm just like, you put that scene there, I can't not think about this. What if someone scanners and explodes? These are genuine questions. I want Rose
and
to
it's
deliver
also
this baby.
almost the delivery of the line, like the way the doctor says it just sounds kind of reasonable. Like, you're like, yeah, that would be a concern. Like, he's like, literally, like, we don't want to get injured, because then we can't like help anyone. Like,
and because I'm like, that scene is so focused on proving a point that there were other solutions. It could have been like, okay, well, we'll get an isolated room. We'll do like something, like we'll figure it out. Like, because
it also sounds like the doctor saying it from personal perspective. Like, he's like, I've seen something. Like, he was like, we don't do that because of these things.
It's like, we don't do
and
that
I was
anymore.
Like, that's what it feels like. When I went back and watched it, I was like, it sounds like he's saying, like, I've seen some people get really messed up, and so we don't do that anymore because, like, we literally can't. It's too dangerous for us.
It's one of those things, and it's like, I love discussing.
Also, the birth plan. We talked about this before, but what was that birth plan?
Okay, so people were on me for that, because they were like, well, Beast was supposed to be the plan, but he was busy. And just, I'm like, as someone who's had 3 children, I'm like, do you have any idea how many plans I had? And I'm not a
backup plans. Yeah, you gotta have backup plans. Because like, you're also the X-Men, so it's like, well, what if there's a crisis then? And
I'm like, there were so many, like as you're getting close, there's so many things that could happen. I was like, dude, I was Batman. Plans upon plans upon plans.
But also, then why wouldn't we, like, where was Beast? Was he at the UN?
Because he was there. Yeah, he was there. And like,
why did we fly Scott out? Why didn't we fly Beast out?
Because he's the husband. So
yeah, but isn't it more important to have the doctor?
Not from an emotional standpoint.
I have questions about that. That seems ill thought through. But I mean, it is also, you know, a family animated show, family-ish.
And this is the thing why I don't like it, is because it's pulling from that, it forces a more emotional response from people, which it wants to, and I get it. But then that can trickle down into the discussions of it, and that's when the discussions, I find, get their most fraught. And it's like, I love talking about X-Men 97. Obviously, we're doing it right now. But it's also the place where I experience some of just the cruelest discourse in fandom, is talking about, because of things like that. And so sometimes you do have those moments where you're like, do I even want to talk about the X-Men? And the answer is yes. But you do have those moments.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that I definitely will say that I feel, I mean, I always try to talk about the things that I genuinely am like, oh, I really want to talk about this, and I think it's important or whatever. But are there times when I've tiptoed a bit? I have, because I know that there's going to be things that are going to be very divisive.
Touchy? I was going to say touchy. That's a better word. Divisive is a proper word. I'm like, touchy?
Yeah, touchy is also true, though, because it's like, I don't know. It's very interesting with X-Men. And do you think this is comics in general, or is this X-Men? And is this X-Men, or is this X-Men 97? Because I feel like it's very personal for a lot of people. Like, people really like Like, we could talk about Wolverine, and there are people out there that are like, no, Wolverine is like my guy. And I'm like, okay, but Wolverine is also like a fictional character in a book, you know? So like, look, Wolverine is my guy. Like, I get it, but I'm also just like, I'm not so protective of Wolverine, you know, that I can't let him go. I can let him go if I have to let him go.
I'm just the type of person who, even no matter how passionately attached I feel on an
Jack,
emotional level
thank you
to
for the
certain
stretch.
characters, I always like to look at it from the narrative, in like the narrative perspective. And that's just always the way I approach things. And sometimes in fandom that has led to some, especially if you're discussing with somebody who is coming at it from a very different perspective. And online, you don't know what type of conversation you're having all the time at the start, especially because tone is very difficult.
Yeah, it's, well, tone
to
is
read.
non-existent because we're all typing. So it's, I mean, like, our tone somewhat, but even then, if someone's just walking into this video,
and I
you
find
don't know us
also,
yet. You don't know what our tones are.
In general, online discussion, I've found this to be a problem for a while, is that there's a penchant for people to read in their own intent and then assume that as correct, which can also then lead to some very fraught discussions. Because I've definitely felt that a bit about X-Men 97, but it's been over, the positive has, you know, won
Outweighed.
outweighed.
Yeah,
It's definitely outweighed the negative by a huge portion.
Huge margin.
Because doing those like weekly videos was some of the most fun I've had like for a while. Like, it was, even though it was difficult to like get them out like in a reasonable fashion, like, this is fun. Like, I'm motivated to lose the sleep. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. And I've also seen like a lot of negativity, but definitely more positivity than negativity. And it's like, and even some of the negativity is, I think, coming from like a positive place in some cases. Like, it's just, like I said, like, some people are just like really attached to stuff. And I'm just like, okay. But
it's
like,
that passion, that fandom passion. And I think if
sometimes
like,
it turns us into monsters. It's
like, I'm saying, like, you know, I've felt it, but it's just like, I'm always like, am I sane right now? But you know,
yeah, I think the difference is, well, I mean, I would hope. I mean, obviously, you know, we're also saying this maybe about ourselves, so maybe it's not true, and maybe we also both go crazy. I don't think that we do. I think we're pretty good at reining ourselves in when we need to, and it could also be that like we have other people around us that we can be like, I'm like jumping off a deep end right now, and I need to know like how far do I fall?
I had this moment, and it's completely unrelated, but I'm going to share it. It was when I was discussing the unnamed universe.
Oh, yes.
And I had this moment in my script where I was like, but are they unnamed? For I know the names of the people. So if the reader knows the names, are they truly unnamed? And I had to have this moment where I went downstairs, talked to my husband, and I'm like, Kevin, am I being incredibly pedantic? And I went through the whole thing I just said, and he was like, yeah. He was like, that was ridiculous.
That was ridiculous.
And I was like, thank you for that.
I needed an outside perspective. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the thing though, because sometimes it's like, you know, and I know there are also certain things that someone will say like, oh, this thing is happening. And I'll be like, oh, I really don't like that. Like, I really am just not about it.
I don't care.
And yeah, and it might not even be something that I've read. Like, it might just be an idea, and I can be very dismissive sometimes. I can be very stubborn, and I will acknowledge, I mean, I'm not willing to give up my stubbornness, to be real with you, but at the same time, I will acknowledge, and especially if I go back and try to like revisit something and then I change my mind about it, I'm like, oh, when I've said this before, that was kind of not fair of me. Like, I was being unfair to this idea that was like a baby idea. Like, it was just an announcement of a thing, and I'm like, oh, I hate it. Like, it's like, Amanda, but it's not out yet. And I'm like, I know, but I can't. I don't like it. Yeah, but you know, then if I read it and I don't like it, then I can say, well, I've read it and I know I don't like it. So at least I can back it up with something.
Did you have any of those moments rewatching 97 where like you were like, oh, I didn't like it, but now you're like, you know what? Upon further closer inspection.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I don't feel like there was anything that I really disliked in X-Men 97. Like, I mean, I guess the Goblin Queen thing did bother me. The fact that Maddie is just like, she just takes the name Madelyne Pryor for like no reason. And she's just the Goblin Queen because she's the Goblin Queen in the comics. But no, I still don't like that. I still was like, but I was willing to accept it a little bit more because I'm like, but yeah, I understand. We're just doing Inferno in like one episode. And so I think they did a really good job of adapting it, and that time frame and making it feel, like you said, like when you go back, it doesn't feel as rushed.
It also
You get
smooths
all the
out a lot
beats.
of the relationship elements for Madelyne and Scott, which is
Yes.
helpful.
Yes. A lot of that gets smoothed out, I think, throughout the season
Yeah.
in terms of just all the infidelity stuff between Jean and Scott and all that stuff. I think they have a really good approach to a lot of that.
I felt the rebuilding of their relationship a lot more than I thought I was going to. Honestly,
Yeah.
going into it, I was like, you know what? I'm more into this than I anticipated.
I mean, I will say that I think, especially watching it more as like one piece, it's like you really get to just feel the dips and the like the highs of Jean and Scott and their little weird family. It's cute. Although I do hope that Madelyne is not vaporized for life, because I am still, speaking of things I want to see in season 2, I would love to see Maddie return. I know that might be a pipe dream, but you know, people were like, well, she's gone. And I was like, well, it's comics.
But is
no
she?
No one's ever gone. And I was like, remember when we thought she was gone in Inferno and then she came back? I hope that when she comes back, she's super evil. That's what I want for her. I want her to be super evil again.
You want the crazed.
Yeah, I want her to be super evil. But I also do love that. I think the thing that I really love in terms of episode 3, we're really all over the place, but I love it, so I'm just going to go with it. The thing that I really love in terms of episode 3, and I think you and I have talked about this before, is that I feel like Madelyne Pryor in the comics has this really tragic story that, like, for a long time, never really fully got addressed. We never really fully got justice for the character. And she kind of just gets relegated to being this like crazy woman. And although I love a crazy woman, so I'm not anti that idea, it is kind of can be a little bit reductive, I feel like, for just, oh, she's just a woman that like went crazy.
It's because a lot of that is trying to fix some of the stuff with Cyclops. So
yes.
It's like, in order to...
Rather than have him take onus, we're going to make Maddie, like, extra crazy.
Yeah, it's just she's unhinged. That's what we're going for.
Yeah. And, I mean, I will say to the benefit, to the benefit of the comics, I do think they also kind of do it in a way of like, she's a tragic figure though, so it's not like, oh, she's just like an unhinged woman. It's like, no, like there's a reason why.
And X-Men 97 has the benefit of now being able to look back at all of that storyline, some of which was being cobbled together and is like over time, and be like, okay, what worked and what didn't, and let's see how we can now pick around with what's all now present in front of us. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, it can condense and it can do those things because it has all that material to pull from. So sometimes when there's moments where it's like, oh, it's doing this so much better, and it's like, well, it can, because it has all of those pieces to be able to pull from.
I feel like the idea of Jean versus Maddie, and this being like a huge point of Maddie's character, is something that I am very happy that we didn't just be like, and that's basically Maddie's whole thing. She just hates Jean because she feels like Jean has taken her life from her, and so they can like, they always hate each other, or, you know, I mean, I don't think Jean really hates a lot of people. Jean, for the most part, is mostly just like, look, can we just like chill? And then the other person's like, no, I hate you forever. So that whole idea of like these two women that have to compete with each other, they're the same woman, basically. I love that we just were able to dismantle that in like one episode and be like, nah. Like, these two women, they're both victims in a way. And they both, instead of being like, I'm going to blame you for it, they're just going to blame the people that are actually responsible and be like, why don't we just like be friends though? Like, we're basically like sisters. And I'm just like, we're basically like sister wives, really, is what they are. In a weird way. And then they just kind of like shake hands on it. And I think that the only thing is, if we do have Maddie come back, I would hate to see that bond tarnished, because I actually really liked that part. And that's something that like we really have never gotten in the comics, like maybe kind of recently. But even then, like, you know, there's some of that I feel like in Dark Web, and we've seen some of that built in, but it's never been
I like that
explored.
tension.
You like the tension. So you like the verses.
It's not a versus. It doesn't need for me. I'm like, I feel like there are some relationships that even if they're not like grr, should have a simmering tension. I think it's good to have a balance.
See, that's like Emma and Jean for me. Like that is the tension, or or even like Emma and Storm as well. That tension, massive
I need that to
tension
always
there.
be there. I'm like, I need this.
And it's justified.
Yes.
And it's like, maybe sometimes we can put things behind, but there's always going to be that little like,
never forget the body swap. Never forget.
Never forget. You can't. As Emma would just shrug, but it's that happened and it was terrible. Emma's most evil days. Bennu is saying thoughts on feral Wolverine. Avoid/do it. Also, thank you for the super chat, Bennu. Avoid/do it. I think do it.
I've actually been rereading some of the feral Wolverine because I've been pushed to reread a bunch of stuff because of all this, and I'm liking it better than I did upon first
initial read.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? I don't remember why I was so like feral Wolverine when I first read this.
Yeah, I think feral Wolverine, there's a time and place for feral Wolverine, and I think that time and place could be now. I think it's a fun journey for Wolverine. I just think it depends. Depends on, what exactly we want to do with that or say about that.
That's the thing. I'm like, if we do it, I don't want to just be like, we did it. I'm like, if we're going to do it, let's do something.
But I have faith just based on everything else they've done in season 1, that if we're doing it, like, we're gonna actually go there. Mm-hmm. So I think, if you're going to do it, commit. But if you're going to commit, then do it. Yeah, sounds
nice
good.
for Logan, because Logan didn't have as much to do this season as some others. Although I didn't mind
other than being a weirdly well-rounded Wolverine, which started off the season very grumpy, and then just over time, just little bits that were like, oh, I'm grumpy, but like I'm also like super wise, man. And I was like,
I've seen things.
I know some stuff. Yeah. Which I actually did really appreciate, though, because it was like, this is true, and this is something that sometimes doesn't get highlighted, but
it's true. He's been around.
He knows some things. He's seen some stuff. Why not share it with people? DiCarlo has asked, if Cyclops and Jean raise young Nathan, will he forget about Maddie? No. Wait, what? Raise young Nathan? Oh, like when they go back in time. Oh, no. I don't think he'll ever forget, because I think Maddie imprinted on him, and that was the whole point of that. Like, he'll never forget who his mom is, which is also another beautiful moment for Maddie, who constantly, girl is like, I just want to be with my baby, and never gets that. And also in this, we didn't see her being like, I'm going to sacrifice my baby.
Which was nice. I appreciated that.
Like, because that's also a thing of like the weirdness of Madelyne Pryor. The duality of her is like, I have this baby, but I'm an evil woman, so I'm gonna like, there's demons, and then the other
there's literally demons.
Literally there's demons, and then the other side of it is like, oh, but I just miss my baby, and I'm like, the baby with the you there were demons. What about that part? And she's like, I was brainwashed. I'm a crazy woman. So in this, there was no demons, which is unfortunate in some regards, but for the most part is good, because it means that Maddie just gets to be this mom that really loves her kid, and I think that's never going to change, and I think Cable will always remember who his mom is, and I think that's beautiful. But, he can have 2 moms. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Why not? Yeah, a lot of people got 2 moms, okay? Destiny and Mystique just renewed their vows. Lots of 2 moms happening, and I'm here for it. Also, what's better? I mean, I think honestly also, oh no, this is mean.
What?
I was gonna say, I think if Scott's your dad, maybe you do want 2 moms. Maybe just in case.
Harsh.
That's why I said it's mean. I was like, oh, that's really mean to Scott. But sometimes Scott has his moments. He can be a very good dad, but he can also be a dad that is sometimes lacking. I don't think it's his fault, Look at who his dad is. It's not his fault.
Yeah, he's doing better than Corsair. I mean,
he's doing a lot better than Corsair, and that's something. And also, Corsair even has his moments as a dad. So, it's not easy to be a parent. So the more parents that you have, the better chance you have, I think.
You think you're increasing the odds?
Increasing the odds of just, it going a little bit smoother for you. And I'm also wondering if, to a certain extent, if Cable has, like another parent, if, like Bishop took care of him at any point, or like Forge, or what's going to happen with that. just because like we see him at the end of the show when he's Nathan Dayspring.
Mm-hmm.
But like in the in-between times when Bishop like took him back, I'm just wondering, like, was he just with the Ascani, or is there something else that we're gonna get in there?
Mm-hmm.
In the comics, I think he's just with the Ascani, but I don't know. I just like when Forge is a Summer's adoptive parent. I always think Dad Forge could be a good moment, you know. That could be some redemption for Forge. Dante, thank you so much for the super chat. Dante said, last one, my hope is after this season we get Magneto and Rogue one-shot comic. Something for the 3 fans. But like the idea of the 3 fans, is that you, Dante, me, and Sasha? Are we the 3 fans? I think there's more people that ship it.
Dozens. No, but
dozens. At least dozens.
So there was this moment that I have to share with you and the chat because I thought it was so funny, which was the first time when my daughter wandered into the room and we were watching episode 2, and it was the speech where like Magneto's talking with Rogue, and my daughter was like, "What's Rogue saying to her dad?" So that moment made me laugh really, really hard. But the thing is,
Rogue saying to her dad.
So that's the outside perspective on it. But I don't know. That retcon, I'm still sorting through how I feel about the fact that they retcon that in so hard. I get why, but I'm still not sure if I'm entirely down with it, even though I'm not one of those people who dislikes the base concept of Magneto and Rogue.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I enjoy it in
this context.
Yes,
right. Well, I mean, but how do you feel about it in the context of a one-shot comic where we revisit the love story of Magneto and Rogue?
Not in the context of how they did that flashback where
I feel like in the context of the comics, I feel like that could be interesting. I feel like in the show, I also think in the show it could be interesting, but I also think there's some other things we got to talk about. It's complicated.
Yes.
It's complicated. I think the thing that I am not a fan of in terms of how, not that I would say that I'm not a fan of per se, but it's more like the way that it was explored is just, if we're going to go that route, I understand what they're trying to do. And although initially I was also shook, over time, I've come to be a little bit more comfortable with it. But I do
think mean, like the introduction on like in the Savage Land?
The robe? Yeah. I just think it's the painting. I just think it was very it's just very heavy-handed, like you said. And so I just think there's some nuance there that I would love for us to explore, because I mean, we kind of get into it a little bit, I feel like, with Rogue in terms of like it's complicated with her and Magneto. Yes. But we don't really get into it, you know. And it's just if that's where the direction we're going with that relationship, there's a lot that I feel like you'd want to explore in terms of what does that mean for these characters and how does that reflect like who they were, who they are, all of these things.
Did you have this moment in the final episode when it's Charles and Eric and he's trying to help with all of the trauma that he has, and then they're super close, then they do that quick cut to Rogue on the boat, and just the way that was, I was like, I feel like this was a deliberate choice to do at this moment, just a little bit.
Yeah. It was, that was, I also was like, interesting timing on that. Yeah. It was, I don't know. I feel like just a lot of the stuff with Rogue and Magneto is like, that's kind of how I feel about a lot of it. Like, I look at it and I the more that I watch it, the more I'm less like shocked by it, but I'm also just like, interesting. I think I just wish we had more time with it. Like with a lot of things in the show. I wish we had more time with things because it's hard for us to fully explore stuff. Feels shallow. We have a few more questions from people here. Matt Krenz, thank you so much for the super chat, saying, I'm hoping we see Cable lead the New Mutants and have that transform into X-Force in season 2. Would love to have Domino and Deadpool finally appear. Yeah, that would be
Deadpool was
cool.
one of the people they said was off limits for them. Which
whatever that means.
I'm kind of
nothing.
I'm kind of a bit glad because I'm a really big fan of Deadpool. I love Deadpool, but sometimes Deadpool can monopolize depending upon how he's utilized. I'm like, I need to keep my selfish desires to see Cable and Deadpool interact to myself.
I would totally be down for some X-Force shenanigans, though. I feel like that could be really cool. But I also don't know if that's like what I want in X-Men or if I want that like as a spin-off show, because I feel like there's just so much big personalities there that honestly feels like it could ground its own thing. But I don't know. I mean, I'm here for all the X teams to have their own show as well. Like, I'm here for Excalibur, I'm here for X-Force, I'm here for X-Factor, I'm here for inevitably when we get to the Krakoan era, and then we can have a Marauder show. That would be cool. I'm here for Sinister and the Nasty Boys, if that's a thing people wanted to do. I would be here for that. I'm here for the Morlocks to come back, and maybe we get to explore them. I know there's Morlock fans. I know they exist. I've talked to some of them. So Marvel, if you're watching, maybe a Morlock show could be in order.
I'm waiting for the inevitable confusion that's going to arise when we have those Nasty Boys and then the new Nasty Boys they're introducing in that Gotham City Sirens.
Which Nasty Boys are the real Nasty Boys? Oh man, Battle of the Nasty Boys. That's the amalgam comic we all need.
The Sinister people are winning. I think they're just like sexy cowboys in the other ones. So.
Yeah, no, I think the Sinister people would definitely win. But we have to wait. Like, maybe once we get to know these Nasty Boys, we might like them better. You don't know. I like the idea of sexy cowboys, but like, what else, I guess, is the question. Zenon says, remember, if you get an invite to a Hellfire Gala, never go.
True.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, especially, it's a bad track record right now.
Just feel nice that you got invited. It's like, oh, that's nice. And then
yeah, feel nice that you got invited. Maybe dress up, but just don't go to it. That's what I would say. Stay at home, watch it on the news, see what happens.
In the dress that you were gonna wear.
Just like how I do when I read Hellfire Gala, dressed up and then crying usually. James says, I really like Magneto's speech, although when he said, I only did what I did to defend my kind, I was like, sure, Jan. So true. Only to defend my kind. Also, all the people that died. Anyways. Two of my favorite creators at once. Awesome stream. Thank you, Sean.
That's so kind.
So nice of you. Franklin Richards, the son of Reed and Sue, was 6 when he got his mutant powers, if I remember. And
yes. Franklin's powers are catastrophic. They are terrifying. I love Franklin.
He's back to being a mutant now, too, right?
I believe so.
Got corrected.
There was that plot where like Reed had to shoot him with that gun. I love that plot. I've got to cover that on my channel.
You do have to cover that on your channel. Where Reed shot him with a gun? What story is that?
He had to take his powers. Because it was too much. He was creating like pocket dimensions and all kinds of stuff. So there was,
wait, no, is that the part where he like nullifies him?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love complicated dad Reed. It's Reed. Reed is trying to protect the universe.
Reed, number one dad, number one superhero, definitely. I think. Well, actually, also maybe question mark for that one. Reed, number one Reed. Yes.
Reed, number one Reed.
Number one Reed.
The reediest of the Reeds of the Council of Reeds.
The most Reed that you could ever read. D. Carlo says, if Cyclops and Jean raise young Nathan, will you forget about Maddie? Oh, I already answered this one, but yes, I like I said, I don't think. I think Maddie is there for life. She imprinted on his brain when he was a baby, so it's all good. That's how you make sure someone remembers you. Someone in the
chat said, don't say imprint because they're thinking about Twilight, which made me laugh.
No, not that. No. Not that.
We don't want that.
We don't talk about that kind of imprint. Well, maybe we will, because I do want to go back and watch Twilight. And Duck has never watched Twilight.
Really?
Yes. So I was like, I feel like we need to do it. And then I was like, and also I have all the books. And then I was like, actually, I may have given my books away. And he was like, I will literally buy you all the books so that you can reread them for when we rewatch. And I was like, wow. I was like, I don't know if I want to reread them, but I appreciate you.
You should do it. It's a time. It's
It is a
a
time. And
moment.
when it came out, Twilight, a lot of people now will ask me and be like, Amanda, vamp, obviously, in my name. Obviously love vampires. And then people go like, right, but what are the vampires? And Twilight, is that your thing? And I'm like, no, Anne Rice was my vampires back in the day. Anne Rice and Buffy was my first vampire. Love vampires. I think Anne Rice may have even been before Buffy. I started reading those books when I was far too young to be reading those books. I'll tell you that
Same.
much.
Oh my goodness. My dad had this library that was up and there were just books on it. And there was no like, oh, let's put the ones that shouldn't be. No, nothing. So,
yeah.
So it was called Interview with the Vampire. So I grabbed it and I loved it. I was far too young to be reading it, but that's fine.
That was me. I think I was reading them when I was like 9 or something. It's
I
definitely
read
not
it
an age.
so many times that my dad cracked and bought me my own copy. He was like, "You're breaking my copy." So
I have one that has a rubber band on it. So yeah, I've broken the spines off some of those books.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Twilight though, when Twilight came out, because I already loved vampires at that point, the books came out, and then my friend was like, oh, I heard these books like vampires and stuff, and so I got it. She got it for me for my birthday, and then I read it, and I mean, look, Twilight is not amazing literature, but it's a page turner. It is it will like just pull you in, especially at the age that I was. Like it's YA. It's a YA book, and I was a YA reader. So
honestly, it's like they are what they are.
They are what they are. They're fine. It's fine. But I haven't read the new ones, so I'm like, maybe I should.
Yeah, I never read the gender swapped one where it was like from the other perspective. I'm like, I should maybe if I ever have time, and I'm like, I want to experience it.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like it could be a fun read. I feel like it's gonna be like. I think I'm gonna be like have to put the book down sometimes for that book. I feel like it's gonna change everything.
The craze for it's unreal. Like people go and film TikToks at the house. There was like a huge makeup collab with ColourPop, and it was like a big deal. And I was just like, this, like Twilight's happening again, you know?
Yeah, we're seeing the resurgence. So I feel like it could be a fun time to revisit it. And definitely people are here for it. And I haven't rewatched it in a long time, so I would always be down. Although I also have to watch the Interview with the Vampire series because that I haven't watched. And I was actually, when I was in Arizona, it was on TV at night. I was like just surfing channels, and so I was watching it, and I like fell asleep watching it, and I was like, whoa, this is actually really good. Like I'm really into this. Like I was like, what's happening? Like what's going on with this? And it feels very like book accurate from what I saw, but also I only watched like 2 episodes, so. DiCarlo was saying Vampire Diaries, the originals. Yes, I never watched Vampire Diaries. Other than
I did.
You did?
I did all of it. I did all the originals, all of it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I saw it on TV, but you know, it was like Supernatural for me, okay? And I'm nothing against Supernatural. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that. I feel like Supernatural fans. Nothing against Supernatural. But it's in a dark room, you know? And so I'm like, I can't really see what's happening. And I feel like a lot of like later Supernaturals apparently not in a dark room, but the early seasons, I just felt like they were always in the same room. And I feel the same way about Vampire Diaries. So
well, because they're filming in that mansion for a lot of it, but you're there for like which vampire is she gonna pick? The brooding one or the fun one? And I'm like, the fun one. The fun
one. Don't pick the brooder. Never a good choice. Yeah, I agree. I'm also... So wait, here's a question. For Twilight, are you Team Jacob or Team Edward?
I was Team neither. I enjoy it.
Team independent woman.
I enjoyed the journey, but like I never cared about her relationship with either of them. And when people wrote fanfics where they just got together, I was like, you know what? Like, I understand why they're doing this because Bella, oh my goodness. I'll never forget the pages in the one where they break up and there's just a couple of months of blank pages because it's like she literally does nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Team neither. You need to put that on a shirt. Team Twilight. Team neither. Don't pick either of these people. Oh yeah, there's 2 more here that I wanted to do. What if Madelyne Pryor returns as the Red Queen? Also, that was a fun little Twilight tangent. I can't wait to label that. People will be like, Twilight? I'll be like,
Like, how did that
happen? We talked
happen?
about Twilight and vampires for a bit. What if Madelyne returns as the Red Queen? That would be interesting. Was she the Red Queen in the comics? I thought she was the Black Queen. Like Jean was the Black Queen. Or was she the Red Queen? All I can think of now is Kate being the Red Queen, because that's the thing that happened recently. But I would be down for Madelyne to return, and I would be down for like a sisterhood vibe. I would be down for all of those things. I just hope that we can do it in a way where it's not just like, Jean has taken my whole life from me, and that's like, you know, the crux of a lot of it. So we have to find our way back to evil for Maddie now, because I feel like we did such a good job reconciling so many issues for her. So what will she have to be evil about?
The foundation of that is still there, but I feel like you can get a bit more creative with it now, which I think is potentially fun,
Like,
because
more interesting.
More interesting, because the whole replacement thing I think is fascinating, especially for like a clone. But I'm like, if you want to go into breaking out and forming your own identity and finding it in villainy, I'm like, there's something there. It's interesting, you know?
Yeah. I would be curious to see like what the angle will be for that. But I mean, I think you can always find a villain angle. I think any well-rounded character can have a villain angle, because, you know, people aren't just inherently good or inherently bad. People are just people, and it's just more a matter of your perspective on something. Critter Nation said they already did a Red Queen episode in the 90s.
I'm still on season 2 of my rewatch. It stalled a little bit. It was going so strong, and then it stalled just because I got busy with other things.
They did a Red Queen episode? I believe you though, Critter Nation. I am also behind on my rewatch. I need to get through that before we get season 2 of X-Men 97. What if Madelyne... Oh, wait, we already did this one. And DeCarlo was saying, do you think we just skip Feral Wolverine and he gets his adamantium from Apocalypse? From Apocalypse? Does Apocalypse have adamantium? Like in his celestial ship? Where's he getting the adamantium from? Because in the comics, we get it from Lady Deathstrike? Is that where he gets it from?
Sorry, I got distracted. Alvin's like literally sticking his paw under the door. It's very horror movie right now.
He's like, let me in. He still has thoughts on that speech, you know? He's been holding on to them for a long time. I don't know. I would believe that Apocalypse has a supply of adamantium, though. Seems like a thing Apocalypse would have. He's got it all, you know?
I'm just excited for Apocalypse. I always remember, I think we talked about last time, where I just, the voice and the presence of Apocalypse in the original cartoon, I just found so cool. And that scene, even though rewatching it was so cheesy, where he makes himself huge, I just thought when I was a kid that was awesome.
I mean, yeah, I agree. I feel like it would be pretty... I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I'm very excited for Apocalypse. I mean, we could transition maybe to talking about... I mean, there's some other things I feel like maybe we should talk about, and then we should probably talk about some theories, and then we should probably, like, sleep at some point. But I was going to say, so, I mean, we talked about episode 1 and 2. We talked about episode 3. We talked about episode 4.
We've been all over.
We've been all over the place. Talked about 5. Talked about Life Death. Talked about Bright Eyes. I guess the one thing that we haven't really touched on as much is kind of the villains of this season, and Bastion and all of that stuff. And while we have talked a little bit about Tolerance's extinction, kind of that arc.
Yeah, the denouement of it, yeah.
So before we get into that, I have a couple more questions or a couple more statements from chat. Bennu, thank you again for the super chat. Jean going Phoenix in the show was definitely fan service, but does it work contextually for you? I'm Phoenix for this one action. Lol. I liked it. I felt like we were pointing towards that direction. It was kind of a Deus Ex Phoenix, I feel like, but yeah, but it didn't really bother me. I do see what people say, though, when they say that, and I do understand why people were bothered by it. But for me, I was so psyched about Phoenix, and I, like, called it in the last episode. Like, I was like, oh, Phoenix is coming for sure. And then that happened, so I felt like I had been, as a fan, the service was delivered to me, you know? I was one of the fans that was serviced.
I didn't mind it because they didn't. I actually liked that it went away because it allowed for the rest of the climax
story to happen. Yeah.
I appreciated. It did feel a little bit like, oh, we're just doing it to do it, but they had been lightly seeding it throughout. So it didn't surprise me, but I still felt that heavy, like Deus Ex, like, okay, we need to get out of this moment and we're going to do it by showcasing the Phoenix because people know about the Phoenix and it's cool. And we've shown some snippets and it's been in the intro. So let's go.
I also liked Jean getting to have like a powerful mom moment with Sinister and basically being like that's enough of this like BS. Like I just thought that was also a really cool moment. And so for me it was like, even though yeah, it's like just here and then gone just to deal with this thing, whatever. I was like, we got a cool moment out of it, and so that always makes me
I do love like as like she's literally ripping the strands of DNA off. I'm like, this is cool. This is a cool moment.
And the whole, like, that is such a good way to, like, deal with Sinister of, like, oh, like, all this mutant DNA that you've taken and, like, made yourself strong, I'm just gonna strip it all away from you. I was like,
I laughed so hard at his very, like, sitcom-y, am I still hot reaction.
Also, like, that was hilarious to me, and it was also hilarious to me because I was like, what a Sinister reaction. Like, guys, am I still
beautiful?
Do I still work it? And everyone's like, you gross, you nasty, Sinister. And now nasty both on the outside and the inside. But also, maybe you were always nasty on the outside here, but it felt very like modern Sinister, that flip. And but I loved it because I love modern Sinister. DiCarlo says he makes him war. I'm assuming this is in regards to Apocalypse and in regards to Wolverine. Oh yeah, he does make him war. Does he give him adamantium though, or does he already have adamantium at that point when he makes him war? I don't know.
No, what X-Men 97 has made me realize, like, there's a lot I need to reread.
Yeah.
There are a lot of arcs I need to go back to.
There's a lot of X-Men that sits in my brain, but not in a linear fashion. So there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, I know this thing and I know this thing. And then sometimes I have like threads that connect stuff. And then sometimes this is like, I don't know, this could be before or after this. I don't know. Happens at a time. Continuity. What is that? Yes, he gives him it, says DiCarlo. Oh, okay. I thought Lady Deathstrike is where we got the adamantium back for Wolverine when he was feral. Or is this a different time when he lost his adamantium? How many times has Wolverine lost his adamantium? A few times. At least, I think. So, he makes him death. Hulk was war for a short bit. Yeah, y'all let me know about that in the chat. I'm paying attention. So let's talk about Bastion and Tolerance is Extinction. How do you feel about the way that we did Operation Zero Tolerance?
I really adored what they did with Bastion. They made some tweaks and I feel like they rounded him out a lot. And he felt a lot more fleshed out to me in the way they utilized him. And I really loved the parallels that they pulled for him. And I just really enjoyed the way that he was utilized. I had so much fun with him, a lot more fun than I had in the comics. I just really enjoyed the presence that he brought to the show and the fact that it added just a different type of villain character to it, which I really appreciated personally.
Yeah, I think it was like just definitely more depth. It felt just so weirdly relevant. Like I was like, Operation Zero Tolerance is not a thing that I think of as like a very like, oh yes, a very topical story.
It really did, even though I feel like the show itself didn't go too much into the angles in of which I found it relatable, but I kept thinking about the rise of AI and the like with just as the story was going on.
It was very subtle the way that they did it. They like didn't say like we're gonna go deep into it, which I would have also been super there for if they wanted to. Well, but I like that they just kind of like put a couple words in, and then you were like, interesting.
Well, because I feel like they were much more heavily focusing on the fusion they were going for with E is for Extinction, which I did appreciate. I felt like the way those two storylines worked very well in tandem with each other. especially after having reread E is for Extinction, I was like, man, what a time this was.
What a time this was. It was really a cool blending of these two stories that I never really thought would work so well together, and yet they worked so well together. And I also feel like this idea of how Bastion was kind of dealt with, and how in the end, like, the X-Men were the X-Men, and they were just like, look, man, like, you're a mutant too. Like, maybe this is how it goes right now, but like, maybe there's a reality where maybe you join us. You could be an X-Men. And he's like, I'd rather die than join you.
And it's a nicer moment for them, because a lot of times the X-Men are kind of weird about mutates. So I'm just like, I appreciate this. Like, I'm rereading some Deadpool now, and they're like, Deadpool, get out. You're not a mutant.
You're not a real mutant. It's like, whoa, this is a weird look for you guys. Especially considering, like, what about all the prejudice and hate that you've lived through? And they're like, yeah, we're putting it back on Deadpool. I'm like, this is a bunch of bullies right now. It feels pretty unfair. I mean, I know Deadpool is annoying. Like, I get it. I've read a lot of Deadpool, but I just always feel bad for Wade.
It's why I love him and Cable. Cable's one of the few people who genuinely enjoys
accepts him.
Time with him.
Yeah,
so
it's true.
I appreciate this friendship. The arc where he's hiring, like actually hiring him for jobs just to make sure he has something to do, is like one of the cutest things.
It's pretty cute. I feel like, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I really appreciated that moment in the X-Men, though. I liked it. I really appreciate the big aspirational hero moment. I was like, yes, let's go for it. Inspirational. Even though it's frustrating. Like, some people found it frustrating, but I'm like, I don't know, I liked it. Oh, just, like, kill him, boo, Bastion. So, but I always appreciate, like, Bastion
but
can
it's
then turn
the
around and say no. That's my thing. I'm like, it's Bastion's role to say no, and he did. So
I mean, it's nice too, because it kind of takes the onus off the X-Men of like, we're gonna, like, we have no choice. We have to, like, kill this guy. It's more like that guy was like, no, I'm beaten, and so I'll just die. Like,
he reached, but there was no time.
There was no time. But I also feel like the other cool thing with, like, offering, I guess, the olive branch there to Bastion is that I was even wondering back when we had that flashback into young Bastion in school, and him, like, hearing the machines and hearing that he was, like, the most powerful mutant or whatever that was. And I was like, wait a minute, so is he a mutant? And then I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So he's a mutant, but he wants to destroy all the mutants because he's like, no, I just refuse to accept this part of myself, and I'm here to, like, protect humanity and protect, like, basically robots.
Is that the inherent programming? Because remember, he's part machine, So I'm so intrigued. There were so many.
There's so many layers.
They pushed some of that to the side, but I'm like, I can think about it, and I find that interesting. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of Bastion. I'm like, Bastion gave me a lot to think about. I know some people found him a bit one note, but I'm like, I felt like there were lots of layers.
I feel like there's lots of layers with Bastion. I thought they did a really good. I actually think they did a better job with him than the comics does with Bastion. I just think there's way more.
I really do. With. Like. And they pulled lots of the cool stuff, though, like his looks, the various transformation looks, which I appreciated too.
I think that was the thing, though, for me, when it was like he has to acknowledge this thing, and that's brought up, and then Professor X is like, oh, like, yes, I got, like, a reading and I wasn't sure, and that's what that was, and all of this stuff. Or, I got the reading and then I went over there and I was like, let me see this kid and I could help. And then his mom was like, I don't want anything to do with this. So it didn't end up working out. That whole idea, even before we got there, just when we had that flashback, I thought to myself, wait a minute. So if he's a mutant, I'm like, couldn't he could maybe join the X-Men? And I thought, oh, that would be kind of an interesting way to, like, end the story. Like, maybe he doesn't really know what that means, and then he finds out, and then maybe, like, he has to reconcile this other side of himself, and he has to, like, accept himself, and that's part of the resolution. And I mean, they didn't do that, but I just loved the idea that that was part of kind of the resolution, was this idea of reconciling, like, his identity. And in a way it's interesting because I think it's also dealing with this other side that we see a little bit in the show that I think is a very interesting and important thing, which is the idea of, like, self-loathing. And, mutants, like, we see it a lot, obviously, with Roberto, this idea of, like, being ashamed of being a mutant and not wanting to, like, accept that part of yourself or be open about that part of yourself. And I just think that's the thing that does get explored a lot in the comics, but I don't know. It's not really usually at the forefront of stuff. So to see that have such of like a strong through line in the show, I was like, oh, that's cool. Because the hate can be external, but it can also be internal.
Because they explored it a couple of different ways with a couple of different characters,
Yeah.
which I appreciated and I thought was interesting, but never
Different levels.
And one of the things I liked about Bastion, though, was that it never superseded for him, which was that it was always there, but then also the narrative plot things he was doing were always at the forefront.
It wasn't really about that. It was just like that informed kind of who he was.
And for me, that made it even stronger. I'm like, this is here and it's enhancing. We're enhancing all of the things that are going on. And I really enjoyed him in the last few episodes, especially like the fight scenes. I loved him beating Cable with his own arm. It's like, it's a requirement.
Oh, so good. Yeah, I saw some people talking about that in chat, and yeah, oh my gosh, that was brutal to watch. That was, ooh, but also the Cable clapback when he's like, yeah, like how many times do you have to save your mom? And Cable's like, I remember exactly how many times I tried. But he's like, how's your mom? I was like, yes. I think I literally applauded when that happened. It just felt so, I was like, wow, what a way to clap back. And while Cable has, had to live through losing his mom a bunch on a loop, I feel like Cable's more adept with like kind of trying to accept that and get over that. Whereas Bastion, that wound is fresh. Like that just happened. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I really liked, Tolerance is Extinction. I think it was really cool how they blended these two ideas. Really cool how they resolved everything, and just what a banger of a way to end it. And then mixing in Fatal Attractions. They were like, we'll just mix that in. I was like, wow, that also works so well.
I'm gonna make a weird statement. I was just so happy I was enjoying it, because like sometimes you get to the end of a show and it's like, oh no.
It's nerve-wracking when you're at the end of the show, because the ending is very important.
Which is such a weird thing to say, because it's like I was low-key stressed. I was like, I really hope I like it because I've enjoyed the rest of it, and it would suck to not like the end of it. So I was so happy when I was like, I'm enjoying it. Yay.
Yeah, yay. Yeah, it was I agree. I was also like, I mean, I think there were some people too that were saying like, even when I wasn't being critical of the Phoenix thing, there were some people in the comments who were saying like I was like blinded by like my love of the show, and I was like, no, I think it was just I did want to enjoy it for sure. Like I did go in wanting to enjoy it, obviously, but I was like, no, I think they actually just did like a really solid job, and that's not easy to do, especially when you've built up a show that has created that much hype to stick the landing. That's a lot of pressure on the show. So we're all watching it, waiting for you to like fall on your face, kind of. Like we're hoping you don't. Like we're all watching it being like, oh, I really want to like it. But if something happens and you like slip, like we're going to be the first people to be like, oh, you fell on your face. You fell right on your face. And then we're going to say, does that ruin the entire show? That's the scary part.
Yeah, is it a water bottle on set? Like how far are we going?
How far are we going?
Because it's like I don't think everything in it was perfect. There's a little bit of pacing things for me in between parts 2 and 3, but on the whole, I think the overall experience was just really enjoyable, and I thought that it tied up the things that it set out to, and what it set up to showcase, it did. So it's like, even if there are some things that I think could have gone different directions, or other threads I wish they'd pulled on more, or other things I wish they'd explored more, I feel like they hit the things that they set up. So
yes. I mean, this kind of leans into what Ninja Theory was just saying. Good endings are hard because they should both be surprising and also the only way they could have ended. And yeah, that is the hard thing, right? Because it's like we all have an idea of where we want this to kind of go. But then at the same time, we don't want it to all be like, oh yeah, and then this, and then that, and then this, and then that's it. So it can't be something that we think we know, but it has to be something that we do know. But we don't want to know that we know. So it's a weird, it's hard.
You're walking a tightrope, You're
walking a tightrope. And they really walked the tightrope very impressively. Also, David says, so Bastion took his arm to stop the clapping. Yeah, that was it. He was like, I know if I leave him with that arm, he's going to clap back, and then he'll literally clap. That is what Cable would do. All right, so let's talk a little bit about theories, I think, before we go. What theories do we have? I mean, we kind of ended this on a very fascinating note. The implications. We got En Sabah Nur. We got Apocalypse here, which, thank goodness. I was theorizing the whole time that he was going to show up, and then everyone was like, "Oh no, Apocalypse in the intro. That's from another thing. That's from the original series." And I was like, "Oh, I guess maybe he won't show up then."
Like, no, the intro mattered.
The intro did matter. He did still show up. So that was pretty cool. Obviously, the card, the implication that Gambit's coming back. Also, to the point, yes, apparently that is how Wolverine got his adamantium back when he was war with Apocalypse, and the adamantium actually came from Sabretooth. Just FYI. I don't think anyone said that in chat, but that's where it came from, I believe. I think I'm correct about that part. So yes. Thank you, though, for confirming that, chat. Hello, Eric Twice. Hello. Every intro mattered. Every intro. Watch them on a straight line. Pull them apart. I really want to do that. So those are the two main things that we kind of got. Obviously, time travel shenanigans. What do you think? Where are we going? Season 2. There's a lot of stories we could do.
Honestly, I don't have many theories, which is, like, for me, a fun place to be. I'm just enjoying the ride of seeing what other people are thinking is going to happen. I'm curious as to how the timelines are going to be implemented. I'm curious, are we going for a we're changing things and moving forward with a slightly, like, things being altered, or is this the way things always are meant to have been? What type of time shenanigans are we doing? Because I'm always interested when we introduce that, what the rules are going to be, because we had that whole speech from Cable about fixed points, fixed things that have to happen. We've seen our little snippets and hints of Rachel and other things. So I'm curious. I'm just intrigued, basically. I'm like, I am intrigued and actually anticipating the second season, which isn't a place I always find myself in. So
I'm really excited for the second season. I honestly hope we get it like before the end of the year. Like, I'm ready for it now. Like, I'm ready now. So whenever they're ready to drop it, I'll be there. I'm missing weekly chats. Like, there's still things in the world that we can talk about. Obviously, we don't need the X-Men to live, but also I love having the animated series back, and although I am a little nervous about season 2 because season 1 was so good, but I have a lot of faith. There's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, now it's going to be terrible." And I'm like, well, I mean, they just did all of that. So I have faith that it will be good. People are sharing some theories in chat here. One of them is one that I actually had after I watched episode 10. I talked about it a bit, and I do want to probably do a whole video on it at some point, because I do like this series. But Chemdog was saying Rise of Apocalypse and Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. And I was saying Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, definitely something I think we're going to do. To what capacity, though?
Yeah.
To what extent? But very interesting that we have Clan Ascani and that we have Nathan Dayspring. I was not expecting us to go there. They were like, "This is where we are now." And I was like, whoa. I think it will also be interesting, like you said, Sasha, like we all have all these threads. And it's like, how are we gonna cut that up?
That's what I'm most interested to see. I'm like, how are we going to break this up? What is the pacing going to be like? How long are we going to stay there? And so I'm curious about that, because now we have to jump around to all these points. So now pacing's really going to matter. So
yeah, pacing was this is going to be like a test of the pacing. Yeah. This is the stress test. We just went through season 1, and there were moments when I felt the pacing was a little off, but then having gone back and, kind of watched the episodes together, I feel like the pacing actually is pretty good throughout. So I'm curious to see. I'm very excited to see where Forge and Bishop go. I'm very excited to see maybe a little like buddy relationship with them building. I think that's going to be
earn
really
that
cool.
Daniel.
Yeah, he needs to earn the Daniel. He needs to earn a lot of things. I'm excited just to see Forge be cool and do cool things and not blurt out "I love you" at the most inopportune moments. I hope that doesn't happen with Bishop again. Like it did with Storm. That would be awkward. Eric is asking, you're friends with Lucy, right? I am friends with Lucy. Yes, Eric. Yes. Are you coming over from Lucy's stream? Was Lucy streaming tonight? I don't know. We were actually just talking about doing a collab today, Lucy and I. DiCarlo says Messiah Complex. I think that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we'll get Messiah Complex in season 2, though. What do you think?
I'm not sure. It depends on if we keep up the speed with which we've been breezing through some storylines, or how much of it you want to take. If it's gonna be like a big amount, or like how we took some snippets of some things and just peppered them throughout. Like
some people were like really concerned about the pace. I saw some people be like, "We're gonna run out of stories," and I was like, "Oh, we'll never run out of stories."
There's still a
Do you know
lot.
how many stories we have?
There's still a lot that has not been touched upon, or only been touched upon partly. That
let's not forget that in Motendo we got the Crunch Conundrum, a story I never thought we would get. And if you had asked me what stories from Wolverine do you think will get mixed into X-Men 97, I would have never thought the Crunch Conundrum. So yeah, I think there's lots of stories. Like, I mean, there's lots of stuff that we just skip and we don't even talk about. So you could grab that, mix that in. There's so much comics. There's especially X-Men. Good stories and bad stories. And you could take bad stories and make them good.
It's true.
I think that'd be cool.
And because you don't even need to stick to the mainline X-Men either. Because you have, with the X-Men, you have so many choices as to where you could go. And they're decently interconnected to the point where you can really pull them together.
Do you think we're going to see any, like, brotherhood in season 2? Like, I feel like a lot of people have also been talking about, like, where's Sabretooth? Like, where's Mystique? Like, do you think we might get some of that?
I'm still pulling for Mystique. I am still pulling for a Mystique reveal.
I hope we get Mystique. I hope we get, like, just people that were sleuthing this whole, like, they were making these plans and they're, like, behind the scenes. And then they're like, this is my moment. I also am thinking, you know, I'd kind of like to see Donald Pierce. Have we seen Donald Pierce? Was he in the original series? Did he appear?
We're entering also this interesting period where Creed is running for president, so I'm interested to see.
Ooh, that would be cool. That would be cool to do.
And I'm like, see, we can do some Sabretooth stuff there too if we want to. You know, I know they had the confrontation already in the original series, but I'm like, we can pull more there. So
that's true. That's true. DiCarlo said we had Creed. We had Creed. Sabretooth was great. He's leading. Oh, we had Creed. Not in this season, though. I don't think so. Did we see him running around? Was he a cameo? He might have been. Chemdog says, I think the Weeping Angels are involved somehow. They might be. I mean, time travel shenanigans sounds like the Weeping Angels to me. Imagine if it's not Apocalypse, it's just the Weeping Angels. Like, they're behind it all. That'd be quite the twist.
It's the crossover you never knew that
you wanted or needed, but here it is. Actually, I would be down for that crossover. I'd be down for the Doctor Who X-Men crossover. I am the demographic for that. I am the person that would be like, oh my gosh, 2 things I love. The amount of crossovers that I would actually love in fandoms. Like, you could cross over so many things, and I'd be like, oh, I love all of these things combined.
It's time for the Star Trek crossover adaptation.
Wait. Oh, wait. No, everything's moving too fast. Chemdog was saying, yes, Donald Pierce was in X-Men 92. Oh, dang. So we already had Donald Pierce. I don't remember it. When I go back and watch it, I guess I'll see it. That's a bummer. I like Donald Pierce. Could he come back? Or is he gone? He might be gone.
I'm contemplating spotlighting some more episodes of the original just because it's interesting to compare and contrast.
Yeah. I'm excited to go back and watch. But honestly, I feel like that's basically it for my theories. Like, I also don't have a lot of theories.
Thing. I don't have a lot right now.
I'm just excited to see what happens. I think also once maybe when we go back and we watch it a few more times, and then if we're like making notes on things, like, oh, I noticed this thing over here. Like, there might be more once I get into like more like Easter eggy things. I do want to go through and do a video on like all the cameos that we get in X-Men 97, because there's a lot, and people were asking for like explanations of everyone. Like, there were some people in my chat that like didn't know who Cloak and Dagger were, and they were just like, can you tell me who these people are? And I'm like, yeah, I can totally do that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a reference. Honestly, it's like it's not.
Yeah.
I know they
They
have
got
their own
some
show
deep
and stuff,
cuts.
but
Yeah, well, they do, but I feel like Cloak and Dagger are not as well known. That's why I was also
no, they're
like,
not.
oh, I love seeing that. Uh, Also, Eric seems to be, I'm assuming, Eric, you are very into the idea of Lucy and I doing a collab. We've actually done a couple collabs before. If you go over to the live tab on my YouTube channel,
We
you can
playing
check it out.
Phasmophobia, right?
We did. We played some
Hmm.
Phasmophobia, and we also played what's the other one? Lethal Company. Have you played Lethal
Mm.
Company, Sasha?
I haven't. No.
Oh, you have to play Lethal Company with us. Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. It's just like chaos. And we were playing it. It was Lucy, Duck, and I that played originally.
Mhm.
And Lucy and I realized that actually we're more efficient without Duck. So
Oh,
now
really?
I'm like, maybe we just need like a lady squad at Lethal Company. Maybe that's the way. Sorry, Duck, you're great, but for some reason we were more efficient. I don't know. I think it's because when Duck plays things, sometimes he likes to just go off. He'll just like go off and start doing stuff, and we're like, wait, what's happening? We need a plan. But yeah. Cool. I think I got everything. Did I miss anything? Zenon says, let's get Age of Apocalypse and Nate Gray. Oh man, Nate Gray. What
The
a moment that
X-Man.
would be. The X-Man. I feel like, I guess if we're going AOA, probably we would get Nate Gray in some capacity. I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of people would be here for it because there is a lot of Nate Gray fans out there. Like a surprising amount of Nate Gray fans.
He was like he had a big moment, and I
And then he
felt
just disappeared
yeah.
forever. Never to be heard from again.
I can see why people are like thinking about Age of Apocalypse. Like that's where my mind jumped. Like when Rogue has that
Same.
line about I was going to lead them into a new age, and I was like, of apocalypse.
Well, I also feel like based on episode 1 and this whole idea of like how like Operation Zero Tolerance was basically seeded in episode
Mhm.
1, and a lot of us like took that line and we're just like, oh, that line's like just an intense line. And I mean, for me, and I know Operation Zero Tolerance, and I didn't even pick up on it until like a few episodes in, and then I was like, oh, is that what that line was about? Oh. So that could be something, because I wouldn't be surprised based on how they've built things in. I think sometimes when people say lines, there's more to it than just a cool line, for sure. Yeah, Madelyne Pryor was a Nate Gray fan. Yeah, that's the thing that happened.
Oh gosh.
Oh boy, never mind Magneto and Rogue. That's gonna be a whole other can of worms if we get into that. All right. Well, I think that's where I want to leave it. Is there anything else that you want to add or you want to talk about, Sasha? I feel like we've talked about a lot of things. There's
Not that I
also a
can
lot
think-
we haven't talked about, but I think we talked about most of it.
Not that I can think of at the moment. If we think of more, we can always come back. So
That's true. If we think of more, we'll come back and we'll talk about it. But for that point, I will just say thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our conversation on X-Men 97 Season 1. And I really appreciate everyone chatting with us. This has been so lovely. And hopefully, oh, Eric Twice, thank you so much for subscribing over on Twitch. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So nice of you. Welcome on into the Fang Gang, my friend. But I will say that I am excited for season 2 and for us to get back together again and be able to talk about this
yes.
all the time. 'Cause it's so much fun. But also, make sure you go if you have an LCS, if there's a place where you can get comics. We are about to enter a new era of X-Men comics, so it is also a really good time to jump in if you have been out of X-Men comics for a bit and you want to get back in. Or of course you can always go to trades and check out all the stuff that happened in the past that was referred to in the series, because there's also a lot of good stuff for
And
that.
you can actually, if you look around, there's a decent amount on the used market, so you don't always have to pay the huge Omni or trade price. Like they're around. You just gotta kind of hunt a little bit. So
Or if you have Marvel Unlimited, a lot of it is
Yeah,
out there, and there's so many reading orders for you. Goodness, I honestly, Marvel Unlimited, sponsor me, please, because I talk about you guys all the time. I'm not sponsored. I just love Marvel Unlimited. But yeah, so yeah, make sure you go out and you read comics. There's lots of good X-Men comics to read. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Make sure you go check out Sasha as well over at Casually Comics. I'm going to plug her one more time in the chat. She's also in the video description, and she'll also probably be in the pinned comment. So make sure you go subscribe if you're not already. I know so many of you are already subscribed because you're great. But that's it for me. Is there anything you have coming up, Sasha? Or is there any new videos that we need to check out?
I'm gonna have a fun exclusive interview dropping in a few days with some authors for Vampirella, so I'm excited for that. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. So look out for that on the horizon.
I need to check that out.
Other than that, we're gonna be doing some more Batman stuff, some deep cuts to very silly Silver Age villains, which is always a good time.
Ooh.
And hopefully we can coordinate to get together for the revenge of Magneto for being a baby.
I'm so excited to talk about Magneto as a baby. That's going to be a good time. So yeah, stay tuned for all of that. I will be back here streaming tomorrow at around 5. I'm going to be checking out some Multiversus. I don't even know who I'm going to play as because there's so many characters in that game that I want to play as, guys. I don't even know. We could do Adventure Time. We could do DC. It's just a wonderful... I could be Garnet from Steven Universe. There's a lot of good choices. Also, I will be back on Saturday at around noonish. I'm going to be doing Devil May Cry 3 as requested by Christopher Townsend 98 over on Twitch. And on Sunday, I'm going to be doing a baking stream as requested by Daniel Ravage. He actually requested a cooking stream, but I'm more of a baker than a cook. So I'm going to bake. I'm going to make Jeff the Landshark cookies, though. If you guys don't know Jeff the Landshark, he's my little buddy here. He's also one of my emotes. He's from Marvel Comics, and I also got him a little Pride hat when I was in Arizona because it's almost Pride. So I have a cookie cutter that Michael got me off of my wish list that is Jeff the Landshark. So nice. I will be making some Jeff cookies. So yes, come back, hang out with us. And other than that, I have more videos that are coming up. I don't know. I have a Doctor Who review at some point that'll be coming up that will be in a new location. And I think every time I do one now, I'm going to do them in new locations because I don't know, it's fun. I don't know if it'll drive people crazy, but I'm doing it anyways. What time tomorrow, DiCarlo? Probably around 5 p.m. EST. It's in the chat. It's in the chat for you. All right, friends. I'll see you later. Have a good night. Thank you so much for joining me, Sasha. Have a good night, everybody. Go to bed or wake up, whatever
time it is.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Stay nerdy, friends. Bye.
Bye.